All right. Hello. We are here with episode 2, the power and art of manifesting with the Kings of Tarot with Anne for our second episode. Hi, Anne. And if you want to introduce
Hi, how are you? We
yourself.
need to go to the first slide of our presentation too.
Oh, yo. Ooh,
We are giving away our King of Cups
I
already at the
know.
beginning. So, but anyway, hi everyone. I'm glad to be here. I hope everybody watched the first episode.
Yes, we had a lot of people watch. We had a very good, successful outcome, and people still watching it. And I did put the link here in the chat room and in the description box. So make sure you do check out episode 1 on the Queens. And we're continuing today with the Kings, and then we're going to continue to move forward every Tuesday. The Knights, the Pages, and then moving forward to the Major Arcana and so forth. So I hope you guys are enjoying this. It's a great take on tarot, how I use tarot when I'm doing readings in my all signs. And, I come from a perspective of manifesting. And, that's where everything I speak, everything when I'm doing the readings, and I want you guys to understand how to use it for yourself that way. And Anne has a great perspective. She's a historian, and she can show archetypes of each card for you, so you can kind of put a personality with each king, and kind of gives you an idea if you have a visual. So when I pull these cards, or you see somebody else pull these cards, you can really tap into what we're saying when we say a King of Pentacles is coming towards you, and how would you approach that when you're manifesting as well, if it's showing up in your position? So let's just move on forward. We do have our first king. And if anybody, hi, Sierra, and Natalia is here too. So if anybody, we had somebody awesomely do the timestamps last time, which was great. But if not, I will have the timestamps up when the video processes for those who watch it afterwards. We are starting with the Kings of Wands. I'm going to blow up the screen here, and so I can see you guys a lot better. And I want to talk with the King of Wands is a fire sign, and the King of Wands is Leo, but usually in a tarot reading, I will say Aries, Leo, Sag, because it is fire, but it is known to be for Leo, the fixed energy of Leo. And he's a very, courageous, creative, charismatic, adventurous, and also wise king. And he signifies passion, and he's a very passionate lover. A lot of people come to readings for love readings. So when I do see the King of Wands come in, it does show me somebody who's just very quick, very fast, very passionate, and is very enthusiastic about love, and is very expressionative when they're, you'll know how they feel about you right away. Thing about, the King of Wands is a visionary too. He sees the future. He knows exactly what he wants and what he's looking for. And he'll also decide quickly if it's not working either. And so they can come in and they can leave just as quick too. So that is a quality of the King of Wands. For manifesting, when I see the King of Wands come in a reading, it does show me that either somebody around you is a king of, is a fiery energy. It doesn't always have to be, an Aries, Leo, Sag, but they do have that quality of somebody who's very energetic, very passionate, and that could be a person that's coming towards you. But it also could be that it's asking you to really tap into what is it that you want. Are you visualizing what you want? You need to visualize and see exactly what you want while manifesting, and also using things like affirmations, and then plan and take action. Usually when I see the King of Wands in a reading, I'm already thinking that you guys have set the intentions. You know exactly what you want, but now this is about taking inspired action and not taking forceful action. So when it says plan and take initiative, it sort of kind of goes along with the Pentacle energies for me. But here it's like you really know, you've got to know what you want, and you have to be very confident. This is the thing with when a fire energy comes up, it's saying you either lack confidence and you're not staying true to your vision, or you're taking action when it's not called for. If you take action out of fear or try to force something to happen, you're not in the flow. And if you're confident in yourself and in your desires, and the King of Wands shows up in your reading, it will tell you that you will know if you have a plan and you have a visualization and you stay focused on your end game, you will feel and know when it's the right time to take action. All right. I also, one of the most adventurous energies is the fire energy. If you want to have fun, if you want to go somewhere, if you need somebody to hang out with, and you're somebody that doesn't like to initiate things, find a fire energy. They're one of the most fun people to be around. So let's move forward. And we have Anne.
All right. Well, when I was thinking of who would be the best example of the King of Wands and fire energy, I mean, all of a sudden I realized, why am I not thinking of the Sun King, right? Louis XIV called himself the Sun King. He was a French king in the 17th century. I think he still is known today as the longest reigning monarch. I think he even reigned longer than Queen Elizabeth II, who recently died, right? And he, although he was not a Leo sun, which is interesting, he was a Leo moon, and he was a Virgo sun, and he styled himself as the Sun King deliberately because he ruled at a time in France when there were civil wars happening. He had become king at a very young age. And when that happens in history, I think we'll see there's going to be another example of this in a few slides that has a different outcome. But whenever there's a young king, the monarchy is wide open for contestation. Somebody is going to try to take over, especially if you're in a situation where there are a lot of ruling families. And so his mom, who ruled for him as regent, was smart enough to have an advisor that she brought in. I should have looked up her astrology, actually. I wonder if she was a Queen of Wands, because she was very level-headed with how she went about setting up his regency. She made sure she brought in an advisor, Cardinal Mazarin, who really invented a new style of monarchy for him. He reigned from a very young age with a really strict code of behavior that started to be developed from the center of France. This was a time in kings' times in history when the central power wasn't extremely strong in France, but they created it into a strong centralized state. Not like what we have in modern times, but for that time, it was very strong. And they did that by things like the cultural influences that you see on these slides. In the first one, on the left side of the screen, Louis is dressed up like Apollo, and he was considered to be like one of the sexiest guys of his era. So even though he's dressed up and dancing in a ballet, that was considered very masculine. He's dressed up there like Apollo, the sun god, and a ballet was commissioned just for him so that he could dance in this ballet, and it would represent himself at the center of the French court. So he starred in the ballet. It was presented at the palace. On the right, you see, just in the background, you see Versailles, which is the palace that was being built and made much more elegant, starting with the time of Louis XIV, starting with his father, actually, and it was being built up to be a center for the French monarchy, so that everybody who was an aristocrat in France would come to this court and have to pay homage to the king. Not like the king wasn't going to listen to anyone unless they were there at the court. And if they knew the right protocol to approach him, if they were wearing the right fashions, we were just talking about that before we started here, was, would you spend tons of money on clothes? Well, if you were a noble in France at this time and you needed something from the king, you would have to go to the court wearing your best, and you would have to look fashionable. You would have to say all the right jokes and know the right games and know how to dance and know all of those things, or the king wasn't going to listen to you. And that was a way to maintain control over all of the aristocrats who were at war with each other, and to maintain his authority at the center. So he was very wise about the way it was implemented, and his advisors were very wise. So he used that energy of the sun to make himself look grand, right? And he did it in a way that definitely asserted his own power at the middle, but he didn't he's overstepping his power because it's a brand new way of ruling, but it made sense. It was a logical structure and people could figure out how to navigate it. It didn't change all the time. And it was a good way for a king to rule at this time. It made sense. So he was a good sun king, king of wands.
Yeah, that's what I and I forgot to even tap on that, but this is where the confidence and the charisma and the flashiness and the attention, they love it, they don't mind it. And so an extravagant and very attractive and magnetic energy, the qualities of the King of Wands. And this is just this picture. I wish I saw this picture at first. I forgot, we just looked at it. And then but that is somebody that can lead trends and definitely have the power that way too, and get away with stuff like that. He could probably get away with that right now.
Yeah. People, you'll see every so often someone trying to dress up like this
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
a costume, I mean, it's pretty cool. I wanted to say also that, you talked about manifestation for the King of Wands and the importance of deliberately setting your intention.
Yeah.
And do it clearly. Well, calling yourself the Sun King, I mean,
Yes.
that's all you need to do. He didn't
Yep.
just call himself, he lived it. And the whole palace was constructed around this notion. So
Yep.
on the bottom right, you have one of the insignias from the Palace of Versailles. That is the sun. And at Versailles, you can actually see right outside the king's window on the ground in the courtyard is the mile marker, the center mile marker that all mileage in France was measured from. So if that, I mean, like, you call yourself the Sun King, this is the era where there's new ideas about how the Earth is no longer the center of the solar system, it's the sun. So people understood that concept. That was a new concept, that everything revolves around the sun. Even mile markers are measured from the palace. Everything begins and ends with the king. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And also, it's when you brought up the manifesting thing, is this is the fake it till you make it. This is you got to step into what it is you want. This is, all right, you thought about it, you set the intentions, you know what you want, but you can't sit around and just wait. You got to play the part, pretend like you have it. It's not delusional, but they own it. They own it until when you're living as if you're living in your end game, you see the vision and you're acting it out and you're calling yourself what you are. I am an entrepreneur. I am the Sun King. I am, famous YouTuber, whatever it is you want to be. And then you even have like the symbols and the clothes and everything else. And you put your environment, you set yourself up to play the part. And that's part of the visionary part. That's part of taking initiative. And then that's how you attract it. The magnetism of it is you're drawn it in because you're living as if it's already here, so it's a very powerful, but the thing is to get into this energy, I mean, you have to get through, you have to know what your intentions are. You have to be confident too. You have to step into it. It's not just about saying it once or twice when you manifest and not doing it. This is where it really happens. This is where you make it happen. But this is where I think people can get confused with, taking action and being aggressive and trying to make things physically happen in their life instead of waiting for the right time for it and taking inspired action. And then things backfire.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we can talk about that after we've looked at both examples, because I think that idea of attracting things is where people get hung up the most.
Yes. Yeah. Did you want me to move ahead? I know. I think
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think I tend to put everything in. I get ahead of myself too. But all right, we have the King of Wands in reversed. All right. Overbearing energy, reckless, ego driven, deceptive, narcissistic, intolerant. Remember, we are dealing with the masculine energies of tarot. And so every masculine energy is going to, even feminine, it has a quality being able to be narcissistic in some sort of sense. But this can be aggressive, very hot-headed type of energy, very impulsive energy. They'll do whatever they want at any time, even if they're pissed, even if they don't care. This is somebody that is so it becomes very self-centered and can't tolerate anybody else but themselves. But what's really going on usually with any kind of narcissistic behavior is there's always major insecurities and low self-esteem, that's fueling it. But this is somebody who definitely lacks awareness, like you said here, of what's really good for everybody else. It's almost very destructive energy. I think of the Tower moment too when I'm looking at this. It's like Aries can be the Emperor, right? And then Aries can be the Tower, and it's like chaos. It's like something's got to change, and if you don't make the change before, if you don't do it beforehand, and the universe comes in, a Tower comes in. That's what I think of. You don't want it's unwelcome change, and it's kind of like here things get out of control. And it's like the fire spreads. It's like untamable fire, and they won't listen to anybody. They will not listen to anybody. They're right. They're very selfish in this energy. And it's like, it's just, they'll burn you in a heartbeat, and they'll step on you. And this is where we talked about with even the Queen of Wands, where they'll step on anybody to get its power or to get wherever they have to go. And they just lose focus. There's a real strong energy of losing focus on where the passion came from, where their charisma is, what originally started them maybe after something, but then getting hungry for more power, and then they just lose focus. And this is what I think what happens. And we have the delusions of grandiose egos, what I always say, but delusions of grandeur. I can't say that word, so my accent. And this is where they get so powerful, and they think they're God. And I've dealt with somebody like that, in a moment like that, where it was like nothing you said to this person or whatever. They just walk in, the type to wear their shades in the inside, you know what I mean? Not take their shades off and look, you know what I mean? They just think the whole world's around them. It just goes too far. It goes too far. And when somebody's and that's all obviously 100%, when I'm talking, I go from 0 to 100, that's going to be at its worst. But if you're in this quality, or you're connecting with somebody like this, you're not going to get anywhere with this energy. And I see so many people in readings like, that sounds like my person. That's my person. That's your person. You're calling them a narcissist. And so that's a spell too. Even if they are or they are not a narcissist, or you think they have these qualities, if they show up for you like this in your life, somewhere you believe that this is what they're like, and they're showing signs of this. So if they are, and they're very intolerant and don't give a shit about you, when you're manifesting with somebody like this, good luck. I mean, this is like, this person's not going to change for you. They're only out for that. They can't even see you. They can't see you, and they'll like your attention for a minute, and then they'll lash back out at you, and it just becomes a power thing for them too. And so on a lighter note, though, if you're just feeling like you're in some of these qualities where you may be feeling, sometimes this happens when people feel like they're losing control, and then they get a little bit more like they try to control things, you know what I mean? And they get out of focus, and so they start to focus on the wrong things, and then anger or frustration starts to take over, I think. And then it's like they lose patience, a lot of impatience here. So when you're manifesting in this energy, you've got to work on your true confidence. And it's not about, it's really about self-reflection again, self-awareness, like you see here, and being patient and refocus on what it is you truly desire. And it's getting back to why are you in this energy anyways? Like, what's making you so angry? What's making you so frustrated? Because we cannot manifest from that energy. And if you're connecting to somebody, and I get the King of Wands in reverse coming up for that person and or for you, I don't always call it out on you guys. I call it out in a gentle way when I see that I pull it up into your position. As it's like that energy out of focus, chaotic, it's ego driven. It's like you'll do whatever it takes to get what you want. And now it's a power struggle between you and your person. And if your person is like intolerable of you being like that, you're not going to manifest it in, and you're going to keep trying to grasp and control your 3D reality, and you're going to do whatever it takes to get what you want. And it's usually when the tower moment comes in and somebody just cuts you out of their life, or you guys you break up, you separate, blocks happen, and then just really like chaotic drama. Just think of the drama or arguing or fighting. And the thing is people can get attached and trauma bond to this type of energy, and it goes around and around and around. And so it becomes an addiction. You start to know that this person's going to come back around, and people will be like, oh yeah, I know they're like that. But then they come back around and the same thing happens. And with manifesting, if you don't work on your confidence when you're in this energy, you're not going to see the results that you're looking for. All right. And you're not going to take the right actions. Did I cover any questions?
I think you covered it. So
Just
I'm all ready to see Napoleon.
all right.
So, a couple of months ago, I did a show with David Palmer on History in the Stars where we looked at Napoleon and connected it to some of the astrology that was going on, because we have some similar transits right now to the time in which he came to power. And so I couldn't help but think of him from every angle when we were preparing for this presentation today, because he is the King of Wands upright and the King of Wands reversed. And I was talking about maybe using him for both. But in the end, I thought, wait a second, we have to have the Sun King, and then we'll look at Napoleon, because Napoleon actually embodies the Emperor energy that you were talking about, but also the King of Wands. So he was, and also I can't not mention the fact that we have this term now, the Napoleon complex, right? Where if somebody's acting too big for their britches, or thinks they can do more than they actually can, you say they have a Napoleon complex when they won't back down with their ego. And he had that. But at the beginning of his life, he really was a self-made man who came from a culture that wasn't the one he ended up in. So he came from an island off the coast of Italy, and that island was annexed by France when he was very young. And so his family wanted to be accepted by the new French people who were running their country. And this was an exciting era in which the Enlightenment was happening, and people started to feel like you could go to school or do learning and actually work your way up in society, that you weren't stuck with whatever you were born into. So his family was very much into trying to make themselves better, and Napoleon ended up entering the military, which was one of the ways you could move up in society at this time. So he entered the army, the French army, and he happened to also be around during the time of the French Revolution. So, this is the time in which Louis XIV is long gone, and his ancestor ends up being guillotined, and France goes into disarray after the loss of the king. And so there was a time of big chaos and confusion in which people were really kind of going against each other, and the whole system was about ready to decombust when Napoleon came along. He had worked his way up through the military, and he became really well known as a general, as a commanding officer first. He was known for his rapid attacks and making quick, smart decisions about what to do in the middle of a conflict. And he won some really important victories. So he was really well thought of because he was a decisive leader. He embodied a lot of the qualities of the King of Wands upright, where he was very favorable towards his men. He always made sure that his army all felt part of the victories. He wasn't the type of general who would just take credit for everything and not give everyone else who contributed credit, right? So that was all really good. What ends up happening is that he worked his way into government and basically seized control. And then he crowned himself, in this picture on the right, he crowned himself emperor eventually. So in the name of the Enlightenment, which were all these democratic values that were fighting against absolutist monarchy, he ends up bringing back in this absolutist style of government and crowning himself head of the government, right? So he's kind of going backwards, but doing it in the name of liberty and equality and fraternity, while imposing his Napoleonic code, his laws that were based on what he thought would be right. So he's like this guy who's a really good King of Wands when he gets into power, and then he kind of starts to take too much power and he turns into the huge ego. And one of the things he did was, after crowning himself emperor and then after crowning his wife Josephine empress, he tried really hard to win her love. She did not like him at first. She thought he was a short, ugly guy who he was spouting romantic poetry all the time, and she just wasn't into that. But he ended up seducing her and winning her over, and then he discards her. It's such the kind of narcissistic love bombing and discard. He did it because she didn't have a male child. They didn't have a child together, and he needed to have a son, he felt. So he divorced her and married this really young woman, and then they did have a child. But after that, so he'd already sort of gone downhill in his reign, and he was starting to lose power. And then, of course, he's known for having wanted to invade Russia at a time of year when it wasn't going to work, and he has a big defeat. But he's sent away, and then he comes back and takes over again, and then is finally banished for good. So he is like this guy with a huge ego and a power complex that will not go away. And then they finally get him out of France altogether. So I think he is a good example of a King of Wands reversed.
Yeah, he is definitely. And it fits that tower moment. It's like you can only go so far. I mean, that's a lot of power with the fire energy. They can manifest, and if they're coming from the heart space and they're doing it for the right reasons, and they're doing it for everybody, and they keep the connection with everybody. It's beautiful. They can make magic happen, but as soon as it becomes all about them, and then it's just too much. It like blows up in your face. And you're just going to see that in readings after readings, people dealing with energies like this. Or if things become, also if it's the person with the card who's in that energy, it's like you're doing whatever to get whatever you want. You're not paying attention to everybody around you, and you're losing allies and people, and then it starts to become a fear base. Like they can't, you can't trust. And then it's very deceptive energy too. And like everybody, you don't trust anybody because you pushed everybody away so much that eventually the kingdom falls. Everything falls on you. So the King of Wands in reverse can be a very hard fall, because they're it's all about power. It's fire, power. So, all right, that was interesting. I love that story. All right, so any questions of the King of Wands? Anything that you wanted to add? Or
I was going to say that this idea about the magnetism, Louis the 14th as the Sun King, he seems like he just understood that was what he needed to do, was to create a space in Versailles where he could draw all the people to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he did by not going to them, right, and not making things available out to the people in the provinces, that they would have to come to him if they wanted anything. So it's like the most extreme example of how you can attract.
Yes.
So what I'm wondering is, we're not all obviously going to be able to be saying, I'm Apollo now, everybody, come to me if you want things. But how would you say we could apply that to our lives now?
Well, it's like what I was saying earlier. It's you fake it till you make it. I mean, if you have a vision and you know exactly what you want to be, so if you want to change your look, if you want to change your appearance, even with weight or anything like that, you've got to start dressing, acting, and doing the things to make it happen. You have to pretend like you are already what you want to be. You have to just carry yourself that way. If you want more confidence, pull in your shoulders back. You've got to stand in the. It's all about acting. So really think about just acting the part, playing the part. I always tell people when we're doing manifesting coaching, I'm like, if you got a script from Hollywood and you were going to get paid so much money to play this part, and this was the best part you ever wanted, would you do it? Would you get up every morning and play that part? Would you act as if you were that person? You become that person. Actors, I forget what it's called, they do that. They train that way, and they embody it. They use that fire, and then once they're in their confidence, and when you're in your confidence anyways, you're in such a high vibration that you're raising your vibration and you're attracting in everything. All right. And people see you looking good because you're acting good, you're looking good, you're holding yourself together, you're super confident. People are attracted to the sun like that, the fire like that. But if you're not carrying yourself like that, you're pushing, you're creating resistance. And if you're saying you can't have things, or you're acting like, oh, I want to be this and I want to be that, I want to be wealthy, but you're acting like, a completely opposite, you're not even in it. You're not even in the end game. You're not even visualizing or being it. And so that's what it's all about, is visualizing it, faking it until you make it, basically, and playing the part, and not being afraid to be not being afraid to go overboard a little bit.
Yeah, I was going to say that I think that's a key, is understanding your value 100%, right? You don't doubt that who you are and what you desire is important, right? You don't doubt that you deserve to
Yeah.
be to have rewards from the universe, and you're not doing it in an ego-driven way, but you're just feeling comfortable to be who you are, right? So for Louis, he was the king and he needed to live that way. Napoleon, what's interesting about him is that he was embodying this different style. He was like this romantic young man that was different. It was like the beginning of this new era where he was sort of the dark, romantic, poetic type of guy that people thought, like the French aristocrats would have thought, who is he? He didn't care what he looked like. I mean, he's like the opposite of Louis at the beginning of his life, where he didn't care what his hair looked like. He was wearing old rumpled clothes, right? That's why Josephine didn't like him. But he was so confident in who he was, and he just kept going. Eventually people said, okay, I guess let's let this guy in and let's see what he has to offer. So he just went too far, right?
Yeah, definitely. And that's where also the affirmations come in. It's like your affirmations are your self-talk, your affirmations. So when we're saying things where it sounds corny to people, I always say, oh, I am the best. I am, I'm the most creative, or people just love the way I look. Doesn't matter what I'm wearing. It doesn't matter if I'm just wearing a tank top. They don't care. They love me the way I am. I don't have to be a certain way. These are my self-concept. This is my self-concept. This is my beliefs. And because I believe it, and it doesn't worry me or bother me, it doesn't weigh on my subconscious, I'm not putting out that vibe to anybody that these are concerns, because what happens is people are a reflection to what's going on within us. And if we're not truly confident in ourselves, we're going to see it. We're going to get triggered because we're going to notice it when somebody else notices it about us, or we're going to point it out on ourselves and other people are going to point it out. And then we're going to tap into our insecurities, right? And so that's why you see some ugly people that I would find not attractive at all having beautiful people all around them or can get anybody they want, right? It's because they have a self-concept and they have so much confidence that people love that. People are attracted to that. And that's the charisma too, and the, the attractiveness and magnetic energy of the King of Wands. So it really comes down to affirmations too. What do you want your self-concept to be? So what are you trying to change in your life? If you are trying to attract love in, you have to know, you have to believe. And it's not about having some desire that somebody else has, like you just said, oh, I just want something. My ego wants something, and I really don't think I could have it, but everybody else can have it but me. No, every single one of us has the ability to have whatever it is that we truly desire. You have to work for it. Some things you may have to work harder for, but we all can have the same things, right? We're all, but it's your self-concept, and you have to decide that you have to first believe that you can have it, have the confidence that you know that you deserve it, and then affirm it, and create a new self-concept.
Yeah. I was going to say in the chat, Learning to See Me said, you have to put in the work, and you just said that. And that's so important for this.
And that gets more too into the work part, is the Pentacles part too, because the fire part is the confidence and everything like that. But what happens is people get burnt out. They don't see things happen fast enough. And a fire energy, if they're in the flow, it's like they can make magic happen, like because they take inspired action and they just listen and know when to go. All right. And they're on point. But sometimes you don't get things as fast as you want them, because there is divine timing. There is, like, you're asking for something, but you have a lot to switch in your head. You really do. Some people have more stories than other people. And so then when we get to the Pentacles, and I'm always telling people, you got to, stay disciplined, and you've got to do the work. You've got, if you every day you spent how many years thinking one way, and now you've got to change how you're thinking now so that you can move forward into a whole new way of being. You can't, some people can do it in a day. Some people can say, hell, I'm changing everything and I'm going. All right. And I've done that. I've picked up and I've moved and I've said, I'm going to do something totally different. And I've done it, but I've done it a lot in my lifetime. Some people have never done that. So if you're making change, and change is hard for you, then you have to know where your weaknesses are, make a plan, and move forward. But we'll get more into that with the Pentacles, because I was just,
Okay. Well, let's move on to the Pentacles.
All right. We are here with the Pentacles. So here we go. All right. So the King of Pentacles. All right. Oh my God, I love the King of Pentacles. He's one of my favorite kings. I always say that, right? Very, very giving, grounded. The CEO, like you have here, very generous. I always think of the father energy. Everybody goes to him because he's good with everything, plans. He has the answers, very grounded, reliable. The King of Pentacles, whether in love or in work, business, life, general spirituality, anything, looks at everything like a business mindset. So it all has to kind of make sense. It all has to fit together. And so when I see a King of Pentacles come up and somebody's connected to a King of Pentacles, and depending on what they're saying about the story, if they're saying, I can't see them, they won't reach out, they won't do that. Usually I'm thinking, if the King of Pentacles is upright, I'm thinking they're either contemplating, wondering if you guys really have what it takes to make it work, or, and depending on the other cards around it, it'll say the King of Pentacles will take a minute to make a decision, because if they don't see that the two of you can work together and plan something for the future, they can't see the future with you, they're not going to invest. They're very, very down to earth, and they don't care how awesome sex is. All right. And they will, they'll hook up with you, a healthy King of Pentacles, they'll find you attractive, they'll embrace it. But if they don't see practical long term, if you don't fit into their their values, their belief system, their plan for the future, their family, the way they like to live, the way they like to look, the way they want their children to be raised, things like that. I think that a lot of people struggle with that. And in the society today, I don't want to, we could tap more into this when we were going to talk about the divine masculine feminine, but there's a lot of women out there right now connecting, and a lot of men connecting with toxic male, toxic feminine. And there's a lot of not toxic male and feminines out there getting messed up with the energies and not, knowing what people want right out the gate. And oftentimes a King of Pentacles will show up when it's with somebody who is dating several people, but they don't want to date several. They want long-term commitment, and that's it. And so they will, looking at the other cards all around the table, I can usually see that this person is like, I want somebody, I'm not looking for somebody that I jump in the bed with right out the gate. And that goes for male and female. You know what I mean? This happens both ways. But I see that a lot in the readings, and it's usually one of the reasons why somebody will pull back, in the dating scene. And I'm tapping into a lot of love because, that's what I do on the reading. But they stay committed once they do commit. Once they choose to be in a relationship with you, they will do whatever it takes to be in a relationship. They're very service oriented people, so they're not the type that is going to buy you. They're not going to be like expressive. Like I see a fire sign might buy you fun things, might do extravagant things. King of Pentacles to me is somebody who's very generous and nurturing, is going to do things that are practical for you. Make sure you're taken care of. Make sure that you're supported in all ways. Whatever it is you want, they're going to make it happen. It can be, very, sometimes you want them to step out of the box and do something, crazy or fun. And you may find, depending on other cards, that they can be like that. But most of the time, everything they do has to be reasonable. It has to be practical, and it has to make sense in the long run. They also very strong work ethic, very strong, and they're very responsible and very patient people, and they're also very persistent. So when I see a King of Pentacles show up and somebody's saying, "Is there any love coming towards me?" and I see that, some people are like, the King of Pentacles is slow. Oh my God, you got a King of Pentacles coming towards you. You're going to be taken care of. You're going to be taken care of if you're playing your cards right, and you're not playing any games, and if you're not giving them any reason to contemplate or get nervous. You know what I mean? If you're level-headed and you're coming in, then you are making practical steps towards goals, strong goals, and you have your own goals towards your future. I think that the King of Pentacles just is a great match for somebody like that. They will invest in you long term. And so let's see. Did I miss anything I was going to say about that? Oh, they are very resourceful and create abundance. All right. They're very good with money. So King of Pentacles is somebody that probably manifests a lot, business and money a lot quicker than love and other things like that in their life. They usually will work on their stability, their foundation, building. And so if you're connecting with somebody who hasn't built that yet, that's probably why they're not ready for commitment, because they're still trying to build their foundation, and so that is most important to them at first. So they usually invest in that kind of energy before they decide who they're going to have a family with and come together in traditional means. All right. Mm-hmm. Obviously that's traditional way of looking at things. All right.
We have such realistic goals for people to live up to with these different kings. Only Martin Luther King Jr. So obviously, Martin Luther King Jr. is a good example of the King of Pentacles. And I think he's a Capricorn sun. So, he's earth energy there. He's a Taurus rising. And also with that Pisces moon, though, that gives him that idealistic vision that he is trying to bring down to earth. So isn't it interesting that he has that "I have a dream" speech that's so famous, because it's all about bringing a dream down and making it real on earth. So I thought about so many different aspects of his personality while you were talking, but we'll just start by saying that he is the son of a minister who was also the son of a Baptist minister. So he became also a Baptist minister. And he was very focused on his work and learning when he was young. And I think he finished school and went away, was finished with high school at the age of 15 and then went off to college pretty early. He went to Morehouse College, and then he went to Crozier Theological Seminary to study to be a minister. So something interesting about him is that while he was studying theology at the seminary, he met a German immigrant student, or I don't know if she was an exchange student, who was working in the cafeteria. And that was his first big love. His first great love was a white German woman. And he actually thought about marrying her, but it was his community that kind of nudged him away from that. And so he had this consideration of weighing or balancing out his role in the community, sort of feeling like he has this larger mission and what would work with his community and what would make him more accessible to people. So that was something that I had been thinking about before, like, does that mean he wasn't really living up to his true self? But really it's interesting. It's a very King of Pentacles sort of thing to do, isn't it? To weigh out, where will you have the biggest impact? In what way do you need to live?
Yeah.
Besides that, he was 18, and I think we all had great loves at the age of 18 that might not be who we're still with today. I know a lot of people are lucky and they are with that person, but I'm not.
It goes with that business mindset, though. They look at everything as long-term goals, long-term strategy, and how is it now going to fit into later, and that's the same thing.
Yeah, and very mature at a young age to be considering that as well. But he did end up marrying Coretta Scott King, who he met. She's a really fascinating woman herself, that she was at the New England Conservatory of Music, and she was training to be an operatic soprano when they met. And she was a very driven, career-oriented woman who also was doing, I think she was a Libra. So I remember looking her up at one point and reading all about her. And so she kind of personifies that kind of Queen of Swords energy. And he married her. He ended up falling in love with her and marrying her. And what's so funny is that I didn't even realize this, that something he said to her was, "You are my Waterloo," like that was where Napoleon was defeated. And I didn't realize that he actually said that when I was choosing Napoleon and him. But so when he met her, he said he met his Waterloo, that he was finally defeated, and this is the person he was going to marry. So then, of course, we know that, but it's interesting that that was a big part of him establishing his identity as an adult, was getting married and having a family. And we do know now that he also had mistresses. But I would say that he didn't let that get into, I guess a lot of men did at that time. And that's something maybe we want to discuss in a future episode. I don't know. But he did not let that get in the way of his mission. He was very mission oriented, and he had he got involved in the bus boycott right away when he was a young minister, and was involved in these nonviolent movements to end segregation. That was very influenced by Gandhi's approach, and it had been a successful approach that Gandhi used in India to defeat the British Empire. So he embraced that sort of mentality and that way of operating, and led up the movements in the South to work to end segregation.
Yeah. So you brought up a good point, and I was thinking about the whole mistresses and things like that. Is with the King of Pentacles, to me, it's, when I was saying earlier, it's not all about it's not all about love. Like, we could be in love, but that's not going to make it, right? We need to be friends. We need to have the same belief systems. We need to have the same family, the same goals, the things like that, right? But there's always that part where, because they stay so balanced and everything. Yeah, I can see them, somebody coming along and attracting them, and them being attracted for a minute, but they're not going to stray, I don't think, the most out of all, too much from their goal or their mission or their family. The thing about when we see the mistresses, and yeah, I think it's something we can get into, but the thing is women are attracted to powerful men, and it's like they'll flock to powerful men. And so it's like, you can't, my opinion anyways, even though it's not right, but it happens on both sides. And women will chase after, I forget who said this, but I've heard it several times, but women will chase after the alpha, after the guy in power, and they won't care if there's 10 or other women going after this person, or if they're married, because it's all about status, and it's all about being with that man. And there's more to that. And it sucks, because even the women that marry powerful men, they almost get ready and prepared for it, shit like this to happen, and it's no excuse, but it's definitely something that happens all the time. And yeah, like JFK and things like that. So but for somebody like him, like when you said he didn't leave his mission, and to me that shows a Capricorn, that shows the King of Pentacles. It's like, there's other powerful leaders now too that will not leave their, no matter what you say about them or what we find out about them. It's like, I still have a mission. This is still my family. This is still my main priority. So hope that added something to it.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Sorry, I was muted. So
I thought so. That's why I was like, are you
wait.
Oh, you want me to go back?
No, go back. No, I was just making fun of myself and my inability to get the mute unmuted.
No, I thought I did something. I was like, whoa, where'd you go? All right. So this is the funny one. This is the one that I just can't get enough of. And I may trigger people, okay? So don't get mad at me if you listen to this video, but he reminds me of the pigs of the men, the pig men, the Epstein Island men, the baby in my belly, like I was telling you earlier, that sell their own kids. They're very greedy. They get to a point where it's just it's all about power, money, the gluttony, control, workaholic, and I'm going the 100%. I love to go to the 100%. All right. So this is the man. This is the man that people complain about, that we don't like, that seem like they don't think about anybody else. They're, the running the world, whatever it is, the powers to be, but they do shady shit. I can just see all kinds of images in my head. And, I obviously have like triggers towards this picture, right? Like, I want to just like, this guy is, and it's a very stubborn energy. Now, like, let's take it down a notch, though. The King of Pentacles in reverse. Let's take it down a notch, because not every man's like that. Not every masculine energy is like that. And not every feminine energy who resonates with a masculine or King of Pentacles is like that either. But it can be a very, very like slothy type of energy. Like, they are not moving. They can be lazy. They can be, it's all about me. I don't care what I need to do for anybody else. I work. I'll put my attention all into the things I want to do. Yeah. Like the workaholic thing, like it's, they won't balance their emotional life. They don't even think about the needs of others. It just becomes about what's important to them. And I've seen this in my life too. And, it's a very stubborn energy. If you're up against this person, and it's almost like they lose a lack for enthusiasm too. It's like, to get motivated. Could you see this person running like even a block? I mean, they wouldn't even, after anything, you know what I mean? It's like no motivation. It doesn't matter. They'd rather be like, fuck it, I'll just let my house burn and I'll just be sitting in it. You know what I mean? I'll go down with it. There's just a sense of, I've lost interest. The only thing I care about is, it's very materialistic energy. And on a nicer note, though, people get into this energy, they just may be forgetting to focus on balance in their life. They're focusing too much on finances. We have that happens in the world today, where we got to work more. We're trying to change that part. We're trying to get out of that. Working hard, work smart, not hard. All right. But everything becomes about money, and people start to work so much. And, the one, both parents are working and things like that, because we can't keep up credit card debt, finances, school, all these things. And it all becomes about that. And more people now are starting to seek balance in their life and trying to be more healthy, whatever that means to them. But this is somebody that just isn't even in touch with their emotions, and it's hard to get somebody to change from this energy. And I'm going to say Taurus, because Taurus is the fixed energy, even though the King of Pentacles is Capricorn. It can be all earth. But out of the three, a Taurus energy is very fixed. And if a Taurus energy is stubborn, and in this energy, you're looking at somebody that's like, they will stay in the same job, like we were talking about earlier, for 40 years, and won't move, won't make change, even if they're unhappy, and even if their whole family's unhappy, even if, that's what I see. They just lack empathy. And it's like, it's difficult for them to balance. It's difficult once they get in that slump. It's like, how do you get out of that slump? And you can hit rock bottom too in an energy like this. So I know this looks like the rich guy who's greedy, but the King of Pentacles in reverse too can also be somebody who won't take responsibility, won't move, won't plan, won't take any action, and will just wait for life to change, or they'll just sit there and just be satisfied with how it is. And the person that's with a person like this will get stuck in that energy with them, and it can be a very dull, very very, very boring, rigid energy too, and no passion. So when it comes to manifesting, you really, if you're feeling like you have no motivation, one of the hardest things to do is to motivate yourself from changing from one way of being for so long into a new way. How do you go from an energy, if you've been in a depression for a few years, or you lack any lust for life anymore? How do you go from that to, all right, I wanna be somebody who's going out there hiking, going on adventures, changing my life. I want to be in a better job. How do you go from point A to point B? It's really hard to go from a King of Pentacles in reverse and go to like a King of Wands energy. You know what I mean? It's really, you've got to take steps. And this is where it's about, the discipline, prioritizing, if you really, when you're like I think it's one of the hardest energies to shake. If you lack responsibility and lack discipline, and you're a difficult person, that stubborn energy is a difficult energy to work with. You always get resistance. You always get excuses. You always get, I'll do it later. You always get, I know buts, or you get the same story every day, and nobody, it's like, what have you done? Have you put in any work? Are you just sitting there daydreaming about it? Are you really, you want things, but you're not doing anything to get things. So it can also look like, I'm manifesting $1 million. I'm writing, scripting, but that's it. That's all I'm doing. But I'm not making any phone calls, or I'm not asking anybody if there's anything out there or any other opportunities. I'm not even looking for them. I'm not even cleaning up or taking a shower today to go out there and just go for a walk. I'm not, it's like, and it can be hard. It's triggering. I told you it might be triggering to talk about the King of Pentacles in reverse. All right. It can be very depressing, very stubborn, very, energy. And it can also, and you've got even possessiveness here too. It can become a very possessive energy, that greedy, this is mine, this is the way I do things, it's my way or the highway. And it's just difficult. It's difficult to work with somebody like that. And they care more too, on I might have missed this point, but they care more about the 3D reality, material things, and also what they look like or what they have, as opposed to what's really going on with them and what makes them happy and what fills them and fills their life. And that, I had another point with that, but I think I just lost it with the King of Pentacles in reverse. When somebody's in King of Pentacles in reverse in a reading, and they show up, this is somebody that's either looking to be with somebody for financial reasons, financial gain, or they're codependent, they're dependent in some way. Or this is somebody that you're dealing with that doesn't even want to get a job or lacks no discipline or responsibility and isn't putting in the effort and is non-committal too. It's a very non-committal energy at some of its worst. So, did I miss anything?
No, I mean, that's so much more complex even than I understood the King of Pentacles in reverse to be.
Yeah,
It feels really suffocating to me.
it
And
can be.
mhm,
It can be, and
yeah.
it's like there's way more than that. The King of Pentacles, I just feel like you can dive into all of them in a lot of ways, but um,
Mhm,
to me, it's just one of the hardest energies to move. It's like trying to
yeah.
move a mountain.
Right. Well, the guy looks like a mountain there too, right? But
Yeah,
I mean, it is a very fixed and earthy energy. So I could see where it'd be the most, like you said, it's the most 3D of all of these. And you can't just move it with affirmations.
no, it's
It's
physical.
an actual plan. You need a
Yeah,
3D real world plan.
yeah,
And if you're dealing with someone like that, you can't just move them, right? You can't
yeah.
just tip over their chair. I'm thinking of Archie Bunker too.
Yeah,
Like,
Archie Bunker. That's yes.
yeah.
That's my dad. Go to work, come home. That's my dad right there. Well, my dad on a certain aspect, but when I'm watching TV, they did their job. That's it. They work. They put the food on the table. They don't care about anything else. All
Mhm.
right, you got your bills paid. Done. I'm working for
Well, yeah.
material things. It
It's
can
so
go in.
easy to get stuck in that though, because
Yes,
so much about our world is all about making sure you're doing all those things that you can get
yes,
lost in, and your passion can get burned out so
yes.
easily.
And that's why I was trying to make it a point to say this isn't just for the. I know I said about the white pig. I was like I was being rude, I was being mean, judgy. This is all of us. We all can tap into the King of Pentacles, Queen of Pentacles energy. We all can. We all can get depressed. We all can get overworked.
Mhm.
You become overworked because you're paying bills, you're paying off debt, you have credit card debt, where we want so many things in the material world, and yet we really don't have the money for it, but we go out and get it, so we're stuck, and we get stuck in this rut. Our life gets out of balance, and we have no passion. We're emotionally detached. We don't even have a reason to live anymore, really, if you think about it. It's like I'm just living to go to work to pay my bills. It can go to that point, and it also obviously can go the other way. I'll win it all at any cost. I'll sell my kids to make a buck too. So you can look at it in all those different ways.
Mhm.
So
Right. So our example is William Randolph Hearst, and I'm not sure if a lot of people are familiar with him. If you've ever been in Central California, you might have seen Hearst Castle, and that is a big palatial residence that you see on the bottom right of this screen here that was built by William Randolph Hearst. So William Randolph Hearst, you can see his dates of birth. He's born in the 19th century and lived through the mid 20th century. He was born into a company, into a family that was like a company, right? That was a publishing family. His father had entered the publishing business, and William Randolph Hearst was known for his journalism, and the fact that he made so much money that he basically became a wealthy hermit by the end of his life, who was the model for Orson Welles's film Citizen Kane. So if you're familiar with that film at all, and if you're not, you should watch it. It's a very important historical film where that has a lot of big developments that are important for the film industry. But there is a character in that film, Charles Foster Kane, who is this very idealistic young businessman at the beginning, and by the end, he's just turned into this, you know, hermit who lives alone and has way too many things, all sorts of things in his home, and this big empty space, but nobody who actually lives with him because he's alienated so many people in order to get all of those things. So it's that classic rich guy dying alone sort of story. William Randolph Hearst made his money, or made more money from his family money, by creating a new type of journalism called yellow journalism, which was sensationalizing the news in order to sell newspapers. We're kind of familiar with this these days, right? So people sensationalizing news stories in order to sell, or clickbait, and all of that really sort of started with his style of journalism. He is responsible with his journalism for, or some people say he's responsible for starting the Spanish-American War, because he inflamed the sinking of an American ship when nobody really knew how it happened. He blamed Spain for it. It went in his newspapers, and before you know it, the story had spun out and turned popular opinion, and got the U.S. involved in a war. He was very well connected. He built this huge palace in Central California by buying up acres and acres of land without people knowing that he was buying so much. And he created this palace that was a location where all sorts of movie stars would come in the 1920s. So it was like a decadent place for people to go. And he just enjoyed having people come. All the beautiful people would come and stay there. And I don't know whether he got any enjoyment out of it. I'm sure he did, but it was more like he was enjoying the fact that all of the beautiful people were at his beautiful home. He filled his home with all sorts of artwork from all over the world, that he basically purchased culture for himself. And it seems like he bought it just to showcase it. So he's one of these people who cares about the art, and it's good because so much money, he put a lot of money into supporting the arts, but it was almost because he just wanted the art. He wanted people to think he had culture, and so he purchased all the art. Let's see what else. I wanted to mention too, in the 1930s, he had overspent. So I guess this would be a King of Pentacles in reverse, not paying attention to how much money you're spending.
Yeah.
He overspent and was going bankrupt and had to sell off all sorts of his properties and his acquisitions. He was saved by his mistress, who cashed out a lot of her money, Marion Davies, who helped to get him out of bankruptcy, and other people. So in the end, a little bit of a community came around to support him. He also, in the 1930s, supported Adolf Hitler at the beginning of the rise of the Nazis. A lot of people were doing that, but and they realized what Hitler was like, and sort of backed off, but he still sort of supported Hitler. I don't know. I'm sure he wasn't vocal about that during World War II. But he basically died a lonely old man with all sorts of stuff in his house that was much emptier, because he had to sell off so much of the artwork to be able to survive, because he had just overspent and focused too much on the outflow of money and not enough on, money coming back in. He wasn't good at investments either. So,
yeah. That just, makes me just think that one of the hardest things when people are the King of Pentacles in reverse is connecting to spirituality. Everything just becomes so 3D and so in the now, and they don't even think about, we can't take this with us when we leave here. What are you doing? I mean, it's just there are people that come here to live just in the 3D and just materialize things. But when you lose everything, though, what do you really have? And then you hear stories like somebody was just saying Ebenezer Scrooge too. It's like, I think you're muted again too.
Yeah, Ebenezer Scrooge is a great example too.
Yeah.
But he was penny pinching so much, right? In the name of making money. He's penny pinching and only letting Mickey Mouse, I think in the Mickey Mouse version, only giving Mickey Mouse one little piece of coal for the oven, right?
Yeah.
So
and
Bob
that's also a horrible thing to do when you're manifesting too, by the way. But people get distracted. I mean, I don't want people to get the wrong idea. We want to act as if we have already abundance, we don't want to go, you don't want to start penny pinching every little thing. So you act like you're budgeting, because that gives you that Four of Pentacles types of energy. You know what I mean? Like, you kind of hoard and hold in a little bit. You've got enough. You're stable. You've got plenty. You got to let go a little bit so that you can allow it to come in. So you don't want that mindset either, because it's also telling the universe that you're kind of afraid to lose what you've got, or you have a kind of a lack mentality. And then it's like, so it can mess with your manifestations if you don't let go a little bit of such a grip and attachment on the material gains and, things like that. You have to have a balance in your life, bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. I love today. All right. So overview and any questions. I think we kind of went into that pretty in depth. I don't know. You got any questions anymore?
Let's see. Does anyone have questions in the chat that came up? I don't see.
No, they're just making comments. Yeah. No, I do the discipline and focused on the end game. So it's just about staying committed. And I already said, and ignoring the 3D a little bit. Ignoring the 3D a little bit, especially if you're trying to get out of the King of Pentacles in reverse and you're trying to manifest money, or you're trying to manifest material things into your life. You've got to focus on, you got to really stay disciplined and focused on your end game and what it is you want. Stay disciplined and not, and if you focus too much on what other people have, what other people are doing, what you don't have, and that's a hard thing to get out of, the King of Pentacles in reverse, because you're in this mindset of, it's like, it can be just like, a very strong lack mentality. Anytime you see a Pentacles in reverse, usually a Five of Pentacles, not in reverse, but even a Five of Pentacles, it's all about lack. It's all about, this lack energy. And you just have to focus on what it is you want and keep taking steps, practical steps forward, and stop focusing on, actually Rich said something when he was talking. He was like how he would get his check every week and he wouldn't even look at how much he made. He would I was watching a little bit of their thing last night, and he would look at what they took out, what they took out. He didn't even look at what he made. And that's a lack mentality. And then be frustrated and aggravated because you didn't make as much, or they took this much from you, but you're focusing on what was taken from you, what you don't have, and you're not focusing on or being grateful for what you do have. And that's what it's all about when you're in the King of Pentacles, is being more grateful. I'm glad.
The gratitude part it seems essential that and it's interesting because our example for the King of Pentacles upright was a minister. So of course that's going to be built into how he lived, would be having gratitude and giving thanks for the things that he has on a daily basis, right?
Yes.
But I think it's important as well to think of, you don't have to necessarily be doing that so formally. Obviously the universe pays attention. If you're appreciating what you have, it's going to give you more of it, right? If you're hating it, or if it's making you feel bad, or if you're feeling like it's not enough, then you are going to always have not enough. And I just think it's that the important aspect is feeling connected to a mission behind what does this 3D reality, what is it doing, or feeling valuable yourself.
Yeah.
Right. Not looking outwards to purchase something that's going to give you value.
Yes.
But basically having that idea of attracting the value, you're bringing things in that match your vibration or accentuate it. It's kind of like how you describe the the Sun King, Louis XIV.
But it also kind of taps into too, when we get to the water energy, is the feeling. The feeling's the most important, in the way you emotionally feel. And with emotions is where we have these attachments to everything. But when you feel into gratitude, and you feel into already knowing you have something, and you start to feel good, and you take the focus off what you don't have, that feeling itself, even, it's the vibration you're in. And then with the other elements like the fire, that's when you won't let I'm getting ahead because we're going to get into this with the water, but you won't let your emotions get the best of you, and you won't react to the 3D reality, because you already know you feel good, you feel, you look within, you have everything, and that's how everything manifests into your life. So that's why all the elements together are important, and it's important to balance all the elements. And it might not be true, but this is why I look at the King of Pentacles as a very important king. It's because they can balance, it seems, to all the elements. they sort of represent to me, you
Mhm.
know, a balance of all the elements perfectly. And that's what we want to do. So we manifest. And that's why the King of Pentacles can manifest abundance, and material gain so much, because when they're upright, they're balanced. And
Yeah.
that's how. All right, getting a little ahead of myself. All right, so we did who we are. We're on the King of Swords. My eyes are already starting to. All right, the King of Swords. One of the starting points for manifesting. All right, this is for me. When I see the King of Swords come up, it's like upright. You already know what you want. You're clear, you're focused, you're smart, you know how to trust yourself. So what are you doing? If I see other cards around and you're asking me and you're going against your logic, you're going against what you already know, it's like, why? So where is it coming from? And so the King of Swords is an energy of very, very smart, straightforward, wise, clear, very effective with manifesting, because they can set their intentions clearly, and they can also see such a wide variety of perspectives that it's easy to look at things from and get out of a little bit, sometimes get out of what's really going on. Sometimes some people can get so zoomed in, whereas I think a King of Pentacles is very good. I think of the Aquarian. King of Swords is Aquarius, but it's all air: Aquarius, Libra, Gemini, but Aquarius. And so Aquarius can really, really analyze and see. I always think of the talking heads, very, very genius. And so if he comes in upright, you've either got somebody around you who's pretty clear, been straightforward with you. So if you're asking about a person and they're giving you a hard time, and I get the King of Swords, and it's not in reverse, it's telling me this person has thought things through, and either you guys are not communicating effectively, you're not listening to them, or they know what they want, they're doing what's best for both of you, they're very righteous. I always think of King Arthur when I think of him for some reason, and
Mhm.
I just think of very good spirited. They think of the judge too. I always think of everything's got to be by law, by right. So, and if your person is thinking that you've done something wrong, or they just think this is wrong, or it's going against what they think is the best for both of you, and it just doesn't make any logical sense, you're up against that. And if you're an emotionally intense person and you're trying to communicate with somebody like this is where there's communication blocks, because somebody like that, and this could be you, it could go back and forth either way. But if you're matching with somebody who doesn't think, or if you show up as the King of Swords, it could even be asking you to maybe try not to think so logically about a situation. Maybe you're trying to figure somebody out, but you've got to dive a little deeper and maybe go feel into it. Maybe this person, you need to bring your emotions into it a little bit. Maybe you're in your head too much. But this person, when you're a King of Swords is really quick thinker. They, fast paced, know what they want. I have a really good friend, Aquarian male. He's a detective, and he can analyze everything. He knows how to make quick decisions. He has to. He's very smart, and they're very fast talking, fast paced too, and very commanding with what they want too. So you're not going to question. So this is another thing when I see people arguing, if they're like, oh yeah, that's my person, a King of Swords, and I'm like, they're pretty straightforward with what they want and what they said. And if they feel disrespected, in an upright position, I'm looking at somebody who's higher quality. If they feel like you're not listening to them, you're disrespecting them, you are crossing the lines, you're not respecting their boundaries, anything like that, you're not being ethical, you're not having an objective mindset, you're going to push this person away. They're not going to want they just, it's not in their makeup. It's not in their makeup to want to even think like that. But if you're a healthy person that comes to them, they're awesome to communicate with, and you can get a lot of clear ideas from a King of Swords. They'll help you figure things out. They'll give you a really good, like I said, objective viewpoint and they are pretty confident, and this is somebody who's not afraid to speak their mind. So if they have an opinion about something, like right now you see a lot of people throwing their opinions out there, whether politics, that this person's going to be one of the first ones to say, but they're going to speak fact. They're at least going to make sure they can back themselves up with fact. Right, so that they can fight with words, and they're pretty much when they value something, and if it's not ethical, it goes against what they believe is the truth, man, they'll fight for it. And they're risk takers, and very commanding. You can follow somebody like this. You can listen to somebody. This is somebody that I can see as a project planner, a project manager too. Like you really can listen to their ideas. Very innovative, and they really can take you on storytelling too, and story time. That just came through too. So that's what I've got. Anything before I move?
Go ahead.
I guess I could say for the manifesting thing, like I said, this is where you really have to have clear intentions. Like an Aquarian, Libra, Gemini, to me, has the power to manifest. Like they could set the intention, set it and forget it, and you guys could manifest quick if you wanted to. If you could set it and forget it and just trust. That is all air energy right there. But yet we can't be that. Our ego doesn't let us do things that quick and easy, but some people can. So it's like they're so innovative, and they can, if you can, set a clear intention and stay disciplined and move towards it, and don't let any distractions get in your way, you're going to get shit done when you're the King of Swords and you're manifesting. But it's all about clear communication, the way you speak to others, the way you talk about yourself, the way you talk to yourself, what you're taking in for content. Anything that has to do with communications is super important when it comes to manifesting, and it's all spells. So
I think we can probably move to the next one, because so this is Henry V, and one of the things about him, actually, it's just reminding me of from the first slide that you just showed. This idea of communication is important with the King of Swords, in that it's straightforward. You can trust what they say, and also you can trust that what they are saying is based on the best thinking, right? So this is the best person to have as a leader, because they've thought everything through, and they're also smart enough that they're not going to shut out bad advice, right? But I think they understand how to plan. So they're going to do the planning stage. And by the time it's time for action, you don't have to doubt, because you're all on the same page, or you've got the best people in all the different positions. So it's the ultimate commander that you want behind things, right?
Well, they stand by a code. It's a code. They have a code when they communicate, and that's it. And that's how they make the best judgment calls, I think, too. So
Right. So Henry V was one of the most famous kings of England, and he actually wasn't even king for very long. But he also was not supposed to be king. That's what's so interesting about him. So he was born into a family that's distantly related to the direct line for the throne. And however, he comes from a place where he had to develop skills that gave him respect as someone people would follow. People actually don't know when his birthday was. So that's that. But there are two dates, and I can't remember what the other one is. I think the other date makes him a Scorpio, or no, a Sagittarius. And this date makes him a Libra sun. But since we were talking about the King of Swords, and I felt like he was a good example of it, I chose that date. That's Libra sun. And just as a side note for people who are thinking, oh, September 16th is actually Virgo, this was before the calendar was changed. So this is the Julian calendar. And at a certain point, the calendar in all of Europe, and then eventually in England, was moved ahead 10 or 11 days, depending on what happened. And so he's actually born at the time when the sun was in Libra. So anyway, that's the astrology for him. So he wasn't supposed to be king, but he is a person who was very smart and accomplished in military, in battle, at a time when England was at war with France. Henry V was in a battle at one point and was shot in the face with an arrow, and survived, and it was removed. And so through that whole process, that made people respect him automatically. He was still fairly young when that happened, and he didn't, he didn't sit there and whine like a baby, right? He was very manly while it was being extracted, and people just admired the fact that he had actually been in battle and was wise enough to use that to help in future battles. He was very smart as well. And when he eventually led troops in France, when he led the English in France, he was known for bringing longbows, which were like the most accurate weapon of his time, most accurate and deadly weapon of his time, especially in the way that he had the longbowmen standing, and the way in which they all shot the longbows. He used pikes so that they were planted in a way that when the armies on the other side advanced, it would make it so their horses couldn't get across. So he was just the best strategic commander as well. He was also, I think, the last English. Was he the last? Well, anyway, I don't actually want to say that because I don't remember for sure, but he actually led his troops into battle. He's not the last one who led his troops into battle, but I think he died in battle, and he died young. So that's the problem. His son didn't, or his successors never lived up to his image, and civil wars broke out when he was no longer king. His wisdom wasn't only on the battlefield. On the bottom right is a picture of him marrying Catherine, who was French. So he created this alliance between England and France that brought in a huge amount of French territory under the crown of England. And so successive kings, or the ones who came after him, lost that territory gradually. And so that's one of the problems that caused a lot of civil war in England after he was no longer the monarch. There is a movie called The King that came out in 2019. I think Timothée Chalamet played Henry V, so you might be familiar with that. So you can learn all about Henry V from that. It's pretty accurate. So I think that's all I want to say about him.
Yeah, I wanted to add, because you brought up a couple of points I forgot to, the strategy, and also with Aquarian energy is the socialization and like-minded, being around people, like-minded goals. So it almost seems like the Aquarian has the ability to communicate, and with people, it's very important to communicate and socialize, and that's how they strategize too, with being with the people, knowing what the people want, and being able to communicate and see things from their perspective. So it's a real good strategy. That's why I always think of King Arthur too, is just, that's what makes a great king. That's what makes a great leader. Somebody who can speak and communicate with the people and can see things from their perspective, but you have to be in it and be a part of it too. But also with manifesting, it brings up the point of being around like-minded people. So if you're not around like-minded people and you're around negative people and you're hearing that squawk in your mind all the time, and remember, misery loves company. So if you're around people that love to talk negative, or they don't have shared goals like you do, and you're trying to shift your life, this is where you have to be strategic and strategize a plan outwards, look at things from different perspectives, see that, okay, I can see that person is not on the same vibe as me, but I don't need to participate in that energy. I'm trying to shift and change. So you may want to actually take yourself, replant yourself in a whole new environment where you're around people that are going to lift you up and have the same kind of positive goals you do. And so that was the other thing you brought up that made me think of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. So we got so the King of Swords in reverse. I'll be up straight honest with you. When I see the King of Swords in reverse, even the Queen of Swords, I don't think I said this in the last one, but it's like when it's in reverse, I see a bullshit already. Like, it's like bullshit detector for me. It's like, are you telling me the truth? Are you telling yourself a lie? Are you, I mean, are you really? Because like, I'll get people trying to tell me, trying to convince me what's going on in their story, and then I'll see the King or Queen of Swords in reverse in their position, and being like, are you either one, lying to yourself about what's really going on? Are you trying to lie to me to see if I'll give you a different answer? I don't know, but it's a big sign of there's untruths happening here. There's unclear communication, and there is a lack of trust. There's maybe even emotional detachment. There's a lack of being, self-awareness, what you're doing. Are you showing false Are you not being yourself? You're not being honest. I know we're talking about masculine energy here, but it can show up, either way, right? And so what happens here is, if you're dealing with somebody like this comes in the form of narcissism as well. And we talk about gaslighting, playing head games with you, lying to you, being very cold and cruel, aggressive, like you have oppresses other, and they have an eye for an eye justice. So if you did this to me, I'm going to do this for you, to you. And I see this as, if you're dealing with somebody who's a King of Swords, I'm like shaking my head, like, this person is not going to bend easily. It's hard to take it's hard to change this person's mind. They're not even listening to you. They're not emotionally invested. They don't care. And to an extreme. All right. It could be just somebody that lacks focus, who is just has no clear intentions. They don't know what they want. It can show up in that kind of energy too, depending on the cards around it. But when we're talking about the dark, you're talking about somebody that is not emotionally invested, and they do not care. And you're caught up in a very toxic energy. And usually the gaslighting makes you feel like you've done something wrong, and you'll continually try to fix it or improve yourself, or you'll be on eggshells all the time. So you'll be the people pleaser, the person that wants to try and do everything to make this person happy. And how can you avoid them getting angry or being cruel? And also, it does show somebody who lacks integrity. It shows somebody who's very unethical, and most likely will lie, cheat, steal. They'll say whatever they need to say to get what they want. They can be very sarcastic, cut in. They hurt you on purpose when it gets to be an aggressive, angry type of energy. If it's more on the lighter end, it's somebody who just lacks clarity and focus about what they want, and they have too much going on in their mind, and and they're not doing anything about it. They may have a lot, they can't prioritize, they can't figure out, and so it's deceptive communication. Like we have here, it's deceptive communication, because if somebody has no clear intentions or focus, they're going to say whatever they need to say in the moment, just to get through the situation. You know what I mean? And it's just dishonest communication. And it can be, like you said, tyranny, abuse of power, and the dictator, which I know we'll talk about that a little bit more. And so for manifesting, it's really focusing on, if you're being dishonest, and dishonesty shows up in all of us, when we're not being true to our highest self. So I know it can be triggering when you call somebody out and say, are you being dishonest with yourself? Are you lying to yourself? We do it all the time. We do it all the time. All right. And it's just really about focusing on and reflecting on these qualities that you have, focusing on what's really important to you. And if you can't understand a situation, it's really about taking a step back. And if you think you're being gaslighted and things like that, you've got to go talk to somebody and get somebody else's perspective, so that you can get a clear perspective of what's really happening. Because if you don't get out of that type of communication, you're in a tornado. You're in chaotic energy. All right. So it's about cultivating self-awareness, being aware of how you are, what you're saying, what you're doing, your limiting beliefs, your thoughts, what you're thinking. You've got to know what's going on in your head. All right. The other thing I want to say before we move on is the unethical manifesting at expense of others. This is something that comes up a lot on my channel. and within the community, the spiritual community. This is something that I try to, when people come to me for manifesting coaching, and I have a lot of people that do, I basically try to talk them out of third party situations where they're going to do something that will bite them in the ass later. If you're trying to, you can manifest, if you're meant to be with somebody, you can manifest somebody ethically, and you don't try and do it manipulative or dishonestly in the 3D. And if you're going into it with the wrong intentions, you're not doing it from a place of alignment, and it's karma. It's karma. You can't beat karma, cause and effect. You can't. And what you're doing now either will happen to you later, or it's going to repeat the same cycle because you're not doing things honestly. And so when I see people kind of verging on that and they're trying to ask for manifesting advice, but I keep seeing the door keep getting slammed on their face, or they get that and they're not being honest with themselves, or they're doing whatever it takes to get what they want, it's almost like I don't know sometimes as a coach to say, I can't tell you what to do in your journey, and I'm not judging you. That's not my place up here to judge you. I'm here to try and get you to understand manifesting concepts. But these are things that will bite you in the ass. I've seen it over and over and over. You know, any time in our life we try to do things dishonestly, it always bites us in the ass. And maybe some people, there are some that will get away with certain things, but you know, I haven't seen much proof. So that's what I wanted to say.
All right. Well, talk about someone who got away with it for a while. I was thinking, King Richard III was a pretty good King of Swords in reverse. What's interesting is for this particular card, we both were thinking about, you know, the most evil dictator type people you can think of, right? Because the King of Swords in reverse could be Hitler. It could be Stalin. It could be Lord Voldemort. Even though we don't know when his birthday is, right? I was thinking of another example here, and I can't think of what it is. It might come back to me. But it is that person who is like the evil genius who could be working behind the scenes. They can turn off their heart completely. They don't feel anything. And they're going to go strategically to get what they want. And so I guess, you know, if they're not getting in the way of anybody else and they're doing it behind the scenes, you know, some of them probably can seem like a King of Swords in upright. But one of the villains that's come down to us through Shakespeare, especially, and Shakespeare wrote a play about Henry V, and he wrote a play about Richard III. Richard III is known as sort of one of the most notorious bad guys in history. And it used to be that people said, oh, he wasn't actually the way Shakespeare depicted him, because Shakespeare depicts him as this king who has a deformed spine and is hunched over, and he has a limp, and so he looks bad, and so we know inside he must be bad. That was kind of a literary device of his time. And it worked because he was writing for a king, or for a monarch, for Queen Elizabeth, who claimed ancestry to the Lancasterian line of this civil war, whereas Richard was on the opposite side, the Yorkist line. So people used to think Shakespeare was basically writing propaganda against the Lancasterian line, or against the Yorkist line. I'm sorry. Did I say it the opposite? Richard is Yorkist and Elizabeth's Lancasterian. It sounds like Game of Thrones too. People usually think of that. But Richard III was the opposite side, so they really played up his villainy. But in 2012, so nobody knew what he actually looked like. But in 2012, someone found the location where his body was buried, because nobody knew where he'd been buried, because he ends up being defeated on the battlefield. And they found his skeleton, unearthed it, and did all sorts of TV shows about examining the skeleton, and found out that he actually did have a very severe curvature in his spine. And so what's amazing about that is he overcame it in his life, because he was able to ride into battle in front of his armies as well. and he did fight on horseback. And there's a whole TV series where they show somebody reenacting how it could be done. And so he actually must have had a lot of mental toughness to overcome that deformity and to be able to function in a way so that it wouldn't have been very noticeable at all. So anyway, he was the son. You can look at this family tree later on. Hopefully, if you're interested, you could take a look at it and see that he is connected way down the line of possible heirs to the throne. And all the people above him in this family tree, there's all sorts of people fighting to become king, because there had been one line of the family where there were way too many men, and all of those men are fighting now and trying to claim the throne. A lot of it's because Henry V's son is not able to maintain, he's not a strong monarch, and there's a succession of weak monarchs, and also monarchs that die young, a monarch who is mentally unfit, and then monarchs who are too young. Richard III played himself off as if he was his brother's biggest supporter, and his brother became king after all of the other people got out of the way. And his brother had two sons who were in line to be king, right? That pushed Richard out of the way. So Richard III is like the Prince Harry of his time, where he's not going to be king at all. But his brother dies young, and it's while the heir to the throne is only 12, and Richard III worms his way in there and figures out how he's going to be the advisor for the young king, and he's going to be the regent and help rule England. Suddenly the two princes disappear, and they're put in the tower, and then suddenly there's this rumor that goes around that their mother is probably, that these kids aren't even legitimate. Because their mother had been married before and she was a bigamist. And then all of a sudden, Richard III becomes king, right? And it was this whole deceptive, behind the scenes, strategic figuring out how to position himself in the right place, so eventually he could become king. Now, there are people who argue that, oh, no, actually, he was doing the right thing, and that's how medieval kings were. But I think any way you look at it, he had to be deceptive in order to get himself into that position.
Yeah.
And he was always pretending to care, right? He's always pretending to be everybody's favorite uncle or their protector. Then he was eventually overthrown or defeated on the battlefield by Henry, who was a Welsh prince who wasn't even really in line for the throne, but he ends up defeating Richard III and becomes Henry VII, and that ends the Wars of the Roses. So Richard does come to a bad end, and he is killed brutally on the battlefield, and his body was like dragged through the streets, and all sorts of horrible things happened to him before he ended up buried in a church that was there, and then being found underneath a parking lot in England eventually. So that's Richard III.
I was going to ask, was this the White Princess, the White Queen, that story that they had? I watched that whole series, and this is that, because it was sounding familiar. Is this what all that was based off of? Because it was a few years ago I watched it, and my mind is after COVID. I have a hard time calling. Because it made all sense to me as you were going through this. I'm like, I remember this, and I watched that whole, the Spanish Princess, the White Princess, and the White Queen. I think it was the whole.
Is that what it was called? I don't know if I watched that one, but it is their symbol for the Yorkists are the white rose, which is what's on his cap there. And then the other side is the red rose. So
there was a curse put on the family, and that's why that's when King Henry couldn't have a son, and then his son ended up dying young, right?
But Henry VIII and Henry VII, his father, who defeated Richard III, brought the lines together by marrying someone from the other side, and then they created this new rose called the Tudor rose, which was red with white in the middle. So
and that's when the Tudors came out. That's when
and then the Tudors with what's his name playing Henry VIII? I can't think of his name.
He was good looking. He played a really good looking Tudor.
They
Yeah,
had to cast him because otherwise no one would believe Henry VIII was a dashing man for his
I
day.
know. Well, it's kind of like The Chosen. They have this really, I don't know his name, but they put Jesus with The Chosen. It's a new series that I watched like a year and a half ago. He's gorgeous. You know what? What a way to get through Americans, to get them to look at Jesus and put a gorgeous, like, he almost.
It's not Jim Caviezel, is it?
I
That's
don't. I
that's who
don't.
was in a movie or something. I was like, Jim Caviezel is Jesus. Okay, I'll be watching. But
Well,
anyway,
yeah, he's got long hair. He looks like the perfect. He couldn't be a more perfect Jesus to get, Hollywood Jesus, And it's like, hell yeah, I'll read the Bible. Let's go. I mean, that's.
yeah, they can't recast Richard III like that, unfortunately, right?
All right. Any questions? Basically, the only thing, I don't think I missed anything. Communication blocks, lack of clarity. If you're finding it difficult to speak, or there's a lot of communication issues and there's swords that are coming up in reverse, usually there's a lot of dishonesty. If you've got any king or queen swords in a reading and you're asking about how they feel or what they're thinking, they're not being honest with you and they're not emotionally invested at all. So or at the time in the current energy, and it is what it is. And most of the time, the person asking for the reading, it. I know it. And it's like, it's hard to accept that truth. And it can be manipulative, especially if the person keeps playing mind games or head games with you.
Mm-hmm. I think that's the problem with this, is that it's a really difficult, if you do have a true King of Swords reversed, I think, on your hands, and they play the long game like Richard III did, like someone like that, you're going to be confused and you won't know what is your own truth. And I think, you need to have space to be able to, get back in touch with whatever is your gut instinct, because they'll use the mind games in a way so that you kind of become misaligned and you kind of connect into whatever it is they want, and that becomes your truth. Right?
Yeah. And I want to say, make sure I'm clear about this. This is abusive energy. And so this can go from 0 to 100 as well. You could be in a long-term relationship, somebody doing this to you, and it's so damaging. You don't even know your own truth, that you need to seek help. I mean, it's mental health. It's mental health. You've been gaslighted. You don't even know what's reality, the truth, right? And then you have people who are dealing with this in the dating scene, or trying to deal with it with online connections and long distance connections. And then it's like, that's where I'm trying to get people to say, don't even bother with that. You can avoid this right now. And but there are people that are strategic, and you'll get, and you get to that point, we got to just pray and hope that they get out of it. Somebody around them can help them see clear. They can get there, you know what I mean? Or they start to learn how to look within. Something comes in their life where they start to look within and start to seek their own truth. We all choose our paths. I mean, you can look at things in different ways. There's so many ways to look at life, but sometimes I look at my life and go, did I really have to go through 10 years of lessons? I mean, but then if you look at it from a different perspective, everything's perfect. I was supposed to, so it is, everybody's got their own journey. So there's no judgment here when we say these things, but what this is to do is to show people what these cards mean. And so if you pull them, reflect on them. And this is why it's a tool for inner reflection, self-inquiry. Am I taking a look? Self-awareness. Am I starting to really look at seeing what's going on in my life? Do I want to see the patterns, or do I want to keep ignoring the patterns? So it's just about a deeper understanding.
But I think sometimes, though, especially with this one, when there's so much mental stuff going on, it's really important to bring in a community on this one, or to bring in trusted family or friends, because one of the ways that this strategic thing works is that you get isolated from all of the people who can help you see your own truth, or who know who you are. And I think that's why it's such a destructive kind of abuse, right?
Yes. I always say I'd rather get punched in the face than stuff like this, like, verbal, mental games, mind games, delusion. It can create delusion. I'd rather get knocked out. Just punch me. Right. I don't want to deal with that, because it's a tactic. It's a military tactic too. you know?
Yeah.
I mean, so, and people, you got a lot of, that's why, even not to bring this up, but, you know, there's a lot of people with PTSD, vets and things like that, people who are trained in this stuff, that they come back, they need to be worked into society and things like that too. I mean, there's just a lot of mental, I'm a big advocate for mental illness, and in this world right now, we can see that it's screaming out now. And I think, you know, God works in funny ways and works in, you know, all different ways. And I think that mental health is finally going to be taken seriously at some point, sooner or later. And because we're seeing what happens when we don't, when we ignore it. And you can't ignore it. You can't. And so I think that in about 10, 20 years, if you're working on a degree, go to school or send your kids to school for psychology, and, you know, and be a mental health counselor, because we're really going to need a lot of, and people that know how to integrate spirituality and everything else too, holistic ways too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I mean, I gotta, I can get opinionated sometimes, but that is one of my things. So, suicide, you know, things like that. I mean, can't ignore it.
Right.
So we have the King of Cups. I've been waiting for this one. And, you know, it's like we have a good King of Cups here, and we have an awesome, you know, in reversed. So we have emotional mastery. The King of Cups is Scorpio energy. So if you notice, all the kings are the fixed energy, but they are all they're all like Cancer, Pisces, Scorpio. It's water, so it can represent Cancer, Pisces, Scorpio, but it does show the main characteristics of the Scorpio energy, and that's where you get the wise, the calm, the balance of spirituality and practicality. You get a very supportive, nurturing energy. Somebody who loves deep connection and can feel you on a deeper level, and can be very protective of your emotions too as well. If you have a healthy King of Cups around you, you will be felt, you will be heard, you will be seen, you'll be understood. They'll everything they do is based off of feelings too. So even in business, they go by their feeling, their intuition, and it's usually, if they're in alignment, they know, and that's why they can make great leaders, spiritual leaders that we were going to get into next. But unconditional love, I mean, it's all about emotions and love. So and very intuitive. So diplomatic as well too, because it's very empathic energy and can tap into people's deepest emotions. So being able to also be kind, so that it's an ability to be able to see everybody. It doesn't matter what status. It's like looking at your soul, looking at you as love, looking at you as not who you are, what you have, what you own. So it's really tapping into here, balance between the heart and mind. I think I already said that too. So with manifesting, the King of Cups is important. I was talking about this earlier. You can have the King of Swords energy in order. You can have your intentions. You can have your focus in line. You can be confident, and you can be ready to go, and you can be taking inspired action. All right. You can be planned, disciplined, right? But if you get caught up in your emotions, or you react to the 3D reality, or you find yourself constantly getting intense emotions or overreactive, this is where, if you don't have a balance of your emotions, it can destroy your manifestation process, right? You can have attachments too much. And I know that's getting into the reversed one, but it's all about having emotional balance is what I want to go with. You really have to practice emotional balance and really feel into what it is you want. And when you have this alignment and you can trust your intuition, you won't react so much to the 3D reality, but feeling is the secret. So when you are in alignment, and you can really get in tune with your emotions, and you really can feel into what you want, you can nurture yourself, and you can calm yourself during times where things seem like they're not working out for you. And this is where you can balance spirituality and practicality, and you won't get overly emotional. All right. And so this also allows you to be able to, I just saw this, offer support and guidance for other people. This is how you can be very nurturing and helpful for other people, because you're able to tap into these emotions and stay balanced as well. But let me move next. We can go. Here you go. My fave. My
You
Right?
know, we had to do King of Cups, Matthew McConaughey for this one. Anyone
Yeah.
who watches you knows that's who this is going to be, right?
Yes. 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 Uh,
So, I mean, I actually never read his more spiritual books, right? The new things
the road trip.
until you're gonna have to tell us about that whole thing because
Uh,
I only finally just got stop. Is it traffic lights, stoplights? What is the green
it's
light?
green lights. Green
Green
lights.
lights.
I even got the bumper sticker on my car.
Right. So that I mean, so this is a person who tapped into that King of Cups energy to kind of do the method acting style, right? To be able to tap
Yes.
into these deep emotions and bring that into his characters,
Yeah.
which comes from having such an almost an emotionally traumatic childhood in a lot of ways, or just emotionally raw childhood of having parents who fought and
Yes.
got married and divorced and like loudly, violently fought in front of their kids,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And then he tapped into that and turned it into, but they loved him. Like they were a very loving family still, right?
Yep.
And so he really was able to pursue his dream of going into acting, but filmmaking, really, right? And then turned that into something that is about helping other people now. And yeah, I think, and he's stepping up to be a very well balanced, healthy spiritual leader. When he did his recent webcast, I don't remember what it was called.
It was
He
the
had
road.
over 1 million people watching live. So he is really a charismatic person who speaks in a way that resonates with a lot of people. And he is focused on healing and stepping into your own authentic self, but then using that to help people in the wider world. So,
Yeah.
what do you want to tell us about him, Frankie?
So I love. I he was always like one of my favorite actors when I was younger, and then I lost track of him. I don't know because I don't watch that many. I didn't watch that many movies,
Mm-hmm.
and I always remember from Dazed and Confused. And then I saw the whole thing with the road trip, and I was seeing him on like Joe Rogan and things like that, and then with James Peterson, and I was like, what the hell's going on here? And then I saw that webinar. Actually, I got it, and then I was watching it, and his whole story is the same as my kind of childhood. Like we were around the same age. He was like a senior, leaving senior, and I was coming in as a freshman. But we were around, and he has a similar kind of rough, raw upbringing that I do. And he's a Scorpio. And this gives that traditional, like Scorpio seems to have a lot of trauma happen in their earlier lives so that they can transform. If they choose to transform, they end up teaching and guiding in the future through their process and being healers. And from a young age, he was very introspective, and that's another water trait, is just being kind of going in and just being very in, everything had to have a meaning for him. And he started making all these choices, but and then he went through a few traumatic turns in his life where he gets the whole yellow light, green light, what is this for, what's this red light for? And it's he finally gets to a point in his life where he becomes famous. And this is where the turning point is he can't handle it at first, or he loses himself. And this is a watery energy. This isn't about thinking logically anymore. This isn't, to me anyways, my perspective. It's more like I don't feel right. This doesn't intuitively feel good to me. I feel out of place. I feel lost. I'm getting caught up in the drug scene or the party scene in Hollywood. I'm doing all these things, and it doesn't have a real deeper I don't have a deeper connection. So if a King of Cups doesn't have a deep connection, I think, to what it is they're doing, their purpose, right? And they lose that. I feel like they lose themselves, even though a feminine energy will. And so he went away from Hollywood after his Time to Kill movie. He went away from Hollywood when he just got really famous and went to a monastery and went to see a monk, and then ended up going on a road trip and so forth, and had for like 3 years to really find himself a few years later. But he did all these things so he can find himself and come into alignment. and that's when he wrote his book and all this other stuff. I'm skipping a lot here because I don't want to take up too much more time, but he ended up, so when I saw him come out as a guide, I was like, what the hell? And when I'm reading his book, I listened to it. I'm listening to his story, and I connected with him on such a level because I was struggling with all this when I first started, because I'm Christian based. I was raised Catholic, and I pray to God every day. I pray, I'm always talking to you about this, right? And yet here I am doing tarot and astrology. I'm Reiki master. I will go to bonfires, I've yogi, Kundalini yoga. I mean, and yet God doesn't have a problem with me, and it's like, he knows where I say he, because that's just, I'm traditionally grown up, to think he, but, so I didn't know what to do with that. And when he came out, and he's coming down middle road. He's somebody who's trying to take Christianity, not go against the Bible in any way, but he's trying to show how it all just comes together and we could take middle road. And it's like, there's no reason for all, and that's what I love about him. And he's just starting this journey. It's been a couple years, and I know we're going to see more of him. And I know as we get through the next 4, 5, 6 years, the next election, all this stuff going on, I really just feel like he's going to be a strong voice for the new way of how we can kind of come together. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm still, some people are like, oh, she's naive. I don't know. Maybe I don't know enough. But this is what I got out of it and how it influenced me. I felt like I had somebody that I finally felt comfortable with what I was doing,
Yeah, I think the thing about him is he is so authentic, and he doesn't hold back anything in the book that he's written. What I found amazing was that he kept those journals for almost his whole life. And
years.
so when he reached this point where he wanted to tell his story, or where he felt like he was at a point where he wanted to tell a story to get back in touch with himself, he was able to look back at all of these journals that are just amazing. And to me, I actually started to do a little more journaling after starting to read it.
Yeah, me too.
It's just like, wow, okay, this makes a lot of sense. And I really connected to this one story where, I'm sorry, we're going to go on about him a little bit, but I think it's
important. Yeah.
There's a lot to learn from that book. But I wanted to say when he went to Australia as a high school senior, and he did a study abroad program, he had the most horrific experience. And I think I identified with it so much, because I would have never been able to do that at that age. I was so introverted and scared of the world, and not to mention going all the way around the world to Australia, right? And so he finds himself in Australia with the most messed up family of all time, who are just crazy. And he walks through the process of how he almost started to destroy himself. Like, he subtly turned it in on himself. And, do you remember when he talks about how he started to live like a monk?
I was just about to say that. Go ahead.
And he started to only eat lettuce with ketchup. And at the time, he didn't realize what he was doing, but it's like, looking back on it, he could see he was slowly starting to destroy himself. And he captures something that I think a lot of us do without ever realizing it. And that came out by the fact that he journaled constantly through this process, and he was able to talk about a healthy way to deal with it, so that he ends up in the middle of a tornado warning, running out of the house because he can't take it anymore, goes to the neighbor they're miles down the road, and they laugh at him because it was like they wanted to see how long he could last with this crazy family. And he doesn't turn around and go, oh, these horrible people. He saw the humor in it. It's like, he is this amazing person who can go with the flow and learn. That's that king element. He stayed in that middle way. He always returns to the middle and is able to keep moving forward and laugh at things, take it in stride, and move on. There's just really so much wisdom in his story.
That's the other thing, is like authenticity, and there's integrity, and there's also dedication, and there's loyalty, and there's I do resonate with him because I have gone in a lot of places and been different places, and I had to stick it through. There's something about that energy where King of Cups is like, I'm here, I said I was going to be here, there's got to be a lesson in this, there's always got to be a lesson. And I've been thinking that since I was a little kid, every little thing. And same with him, that's where I resonated with him. It was like, why even at a young age are we thinking there's got to be a lesson here for me, God's trying to teach me something? Or it's like when I was a kid, I used to be like, I'm going to write a book someday, I'm doing this for some reason, right? And then the thing with the monk, the thing about, it's funny to me when people always talk about he's a Scorpio, and so everybody's always like, oh, Scorpio, this bad Scorpio. But when they don't realize Scorpio energy can repress sexual energy, they can, when you were saying self-sabotaging, he was actually reaching God, he was actually healing. That was his way of cleansing and purifying himself to get through this. In a way, from the way I looked at it, was it feels like torture, it looks like he's tortured, but there's actual a connection, because he talks about it later when he's doing a movie, and he had to get down to like 120 pounds, and he said he was so high and so connected at that point, even though it seemed like he was killing his body. There is some sort of purity that happens, and a Scorpio can, like, even my brother has gone 15 years celibacy, and will be that way the rest of his life probably. That can be a Scorpio energy too, and it is very, very connected. He's very connected. He's meant to be a guide. He's meant to be a strong. I was so wowed when I saw. It just took me forever. I'm always a day late, dollar. I was like, everybody already knows about something, and then here comes Frankie and says, "Oh, she finally caught up."
Well,
But
I must be even behind you, because I only just found it because of you. So
yeah.
I always knew who he was, but I did not know about that whole side of him. So
Yeah, and he's also Scorpio with Gemini rising, so he has a very emotional, creative storytelling that, to me, is so expressionate. It's just, I can listen to him talk all day long. And when I even watched him in A Time to Kill, like, that was one of my favorite movies. Like, he was going to be a lawyer, and so he played that part, and he can just, his emotions are so in it, right? He's convincing, but because he's authentic and you can feel him on a deeper level, you can trust him, and you can trust, you feel safe. And that's a King of Cups upright.
yeah.
And then we have Woody Harrelson over here, for those of you. I think they're brothers. I think the father and the mother divorced 3 times and got remarried. He has a good story there. They hashed it out. They made it, right? Same with my parents. My parents still, not my real dad, but my stepdad's been my dad since I was 3, right? They're still together, and we went through wars in that house with them too. Well, he might be his brother, half brother. They came up with it. And I used to always mess up and think, I used to call him Woody Harrelson. And then I was like, why did I say that? And then later on, I found out that I used to say, well, they look like brothers, but I guess it might be proven, that they are.
Yeah, I missed that part if it was in the book that I was reading, but yeah, I didn't know that.
So I know I had, there was something I really wanted to talk about with the reversed, but I think we might have it here. So we have the King of Cups in reverse, and this is where you're talking about emotional immaturity, very manipulative, and somebody, a Scorpio energy gets down into the deepest emotions. Cancer and Pisces know how to get into, they're very intuitive, right? So it can be very, very cold and heartless. And, we're talking about people that know how to trigger you on a deep level. So if you've got somebody who's in a dark King of Cups reversed energy, they know they know what hurts you. They know how to get there. They know the dark feelings. They know how to manipulate you. And they know how to also withdraw emotions from you. So if they know that you need their love, or you want their love, and you're chasing somebody like this, man, they will withdraw from you, and they will be so emotionally cold and distant. And they know that is the most painful, because if you're attached to somebody like this, and they know that you cannot detach from them, and they know they can withdraw from you, and they can disappear, they know that they are killing you, nearly killing you with an emotional manipulation. This kind of person lacks empathy. All right. They have suppressed emotions and repressed emotions. All right. So, and it's the biggest thing about the King of Cups in reverse, and I may have said this about the Queen of Cups in reverse. When this comes up in a reading, guys, there's no way around this. There's emotional wounds that are blocking you from your manifestations. There's emotional wounds that are getting in the way of your relationship from being healthy. And if you do not do something about these emotional wounds, you are not going to change anything in the situation. Nothing is going to change. You cannot out manipulate a manipulator. You cannot change this situation. You have got to go look at what's going on within you. And that's why I'm always telling people, what are your wounds? What's fear of this, fear of that? What's going on? What do you need? Because they'll play with you. They'll play games with you this way. And if you have unresolved trauma and wounds and you're trying to manifest, and you're going to get triggered with every single thing, you're going to get pulled emotionally out of alignment constantly, and you're just going to stay in these karmic cycles, because the King of Cups in reverse probably has the strongest attachment, needs things on the outside to fill voids, codependency. All right. And so if you don't do the work, if you don't get care, this is therapy. This is meditation. This is therapy. This is finding ways, look, I just as practical, promoting emotional well-being. All right. But when it gets to somebody this manipulative, who's really good at it, or if you're just somebody who attaches yourself to people that are unavailable, those are wounds you have. It's not the person. Because somebody's unemotional to you, you're attaching yourself to somebody because you're wanting somebody to just love you. And this person, you don't even care if it was this person or it could have been somebody else, but you're attached to this person and now you're fixated on it emotionally. You built an emotional bond with somebody who never gave you anything to begin with. And now the only way you can change that while manifesting, and people do this with manifest and an SP, is if you do the work. You have to develop emotional intelligence. You have to you have to balance yourself. It took me a few years. That was my whole past process, the past 3 years. It's like you've got to figure out what's going on within you so that you can have healthy relationships. And you can't really trust when you have the King or Queen of Cups in reverse. I didn't say this with the Queen in reverse. And when we say things like you're not trusting your intuition, it's like you're trusting more. It's like, oh, my intuition, I know I hear them. I hear people say this. I know I feel them. I know they're with me. No, that's your ego. That's your thoughts. You want somebody so bad that you believe it so much that you're imprinting it on your subconscious. So your subconscious is making you feel a certain way even more. So you're believing this feeling to be true because you can't stop obsessing about somebody. So you've created it. So you dream about this person. And that's how we train our subconscious, which is why I'm always trying to get people to retrain their subconscious. And you would see that you would have different things show up for you. But that's how you can not trust your intuition, because you're listening to your ego and your wants and your desires and not what is the truth and what's honest. All right. So I know I just went on a huge tangent. Let's move forward.
Good tangent. And oh my gosh, just in case people weren't already afraid of finding the King of Cups in reverse.
I know.
Here
This
we
is
have
100% though. This is at 100%, 150.
Right. The worst, I guess almost the worst, because I guess there's always worse that you could find for the King of Cups energy in reverse is Charles Manson. Interesting that, I want to actually start with his followers because of something that you just said. So for anyone who doesn't know, I think most people are aware, Charles Manson was somebody who lived in he came to notoriety in the late 60s. He integrated himself into the hippie movement and then recruited people as followers, especially a whole bunch of women. He had basically a harem of women that followed him around. And then, and of course, a couple of men too, who were attracted by the women. And these people who were his family ended up killing, because he had basically programmed them into becoming folks who would kill for him, right? It's interesting because I was watching a documentary in which the three women who were tried and sentenced, who were involved in killing the actress Sharon Tate and her friends, and then also the next evening, these three women who were involved in those killings did some interviews, have done so many interviews after that, and they're not all living anymore. But it's really interesting to hear them talk about where they were in their life when they met this guy. And I think that's where we have a lot to learn, that they came from different types of backgrounds, but all of them had something in common, and that was not feeling loved or accepted within their family. And they were looking outside of themselves for another emotional support or another type of father or somebody who would love them unconditionally. And Charles Manson was someone who learned a lot about manipulative techniques from his own broken background, and he was able to use this to attract these women to him. And that's what's so toxic and it's such a warning, I think, too, from so many angles of wanting to make sure to provide authentic and nurturing surroundings for people, and knowing how important it is to reach out to people in healthy ways to be able to prevent people from being susceptible to this sort of thing. Charles Manson himself was from a really awful background where he didn't know who his dad was, or his dad, I mean, he knows who he was, but he didn't live with his dad. His mom was a prostitute at times and also was in prison for part of his life. He was an arsonist at the age of 9, so he's already getting in trouble. He got kicked out of Boys Town. People tried to intervene and do things for him, and then so he spent most of his life in prison, where he learned all of these tactics. And there's actually a new book that's come out, or a newer book, that talks about how he may have been subjected to programming such as MK Ultra while he was a prisoner, and then he learned the tactics and used them himself to try to program people as killers. That's, the newest work that's out there about him. But basically, this is a story of someone who figured out how to connect with people on their deepest emotional level and cause them to just basically completely reprogram them to become people who were loyal to him, and were basically extensions of his desires and who he was. It's just really fascinating on so many levels. Frankie actually suggested him as the King of Cups in reverse, so I'm interested to know what you think about it.
So he's a perfect Scorpio. He's a perfect Scorpio. And the thing is a Scorpio, a healthy Scorpio, and any Scorpio, and even a water sign, but he's a Scorpio. The thing is that they do better. They use other people's resources, right? That's how how we thrive. It's our sign. It's house 8. It's other people's money, other people, right? And so manipulating other people for his own benefit is the dark side of it. The good side of it is like a spiritual leader, like you said, who works better by helping other people, and you see the darkness of it. His eyes, Scorpio intensity right there. That's a trait of Scorpio that you hear about, the intensity, the magnetic quality of those eyes that can. I was laughing because I was like, you were like earlier, you were like, I wouldn't find him good looking, but remember, all these people were on acid. Can you just imagine those eyes coming at you, right? This is what scares me about this story, is that this is what scares me about now. And I don't want to bring up now too much, but there are people like this who are out there in the crowds that we're in right now, around our children, around what's going on right now. They will take advantage of situations that are out of control. And especially children who, and some of these girls were I think 2 of them, or one of them was from really good family. And they just get lost. And it's easy to manipulate young women, right? And anybody right now. I mean, it's like you can manipulate. He manipulated men and women. And That's why it comes back to, if you don't heal your wounds, if you don't focus on you and fill in yourself first, you will easily be influenced by other people. And a King of Cups, it's a natural. It's not that he learns how to manipulate them. And it's not that I've learned how to connect with people. It's a natural thing for a watery energy to be able to naturally connect with people. It's an emotional vibration. It's a deep connection. So when I walk into a room in a healthy way, I can feel a room out. I can find somebody, navigate over to somebody, and I can really, I've been told my entire life, and not just me, other water energies. I make people feel like I've known them forever. And that's what he does. And he knows how to do it naturally. So now, in a negative way, he's going to use that to his advantage and get everybody to do. He got everybody to do everything for him. It's because he could feel naturally and make somebody feel good. And that's what it was, and fill those spaces, those voids for them. And then they were on drugs too, on top of it. And then they were getting lost and traveling everywhere. So he was taking them everywhere, and they were losing stability. So they have to get, so their only stability is him. So everywhere they go, they have to get more attached to him and close to him. And he's like their dad. He's like the leader. He's like the cult, obviously the cult leader. And so they lose track of life, and everything and that's what, with chaos, that's what happens. People will take advantage of this, and you'll have people who will come in and create little cults like this. And we'll see about it later on. It happened. This is proof that it happened. What else was I going to say? The magnetic, I think I said. Also, I was going to say, I did write this down. It's the dark masculine, and women are attracted to this, just like men are attracted to the dark feminine. It's neither of us want to admit it. Men don't want to admit it, because we're always told that that's the bad girl, the bad guy, right? But because it's been repressed in all of us, and it's always been like taboo, and that's a Scorpio energy, because we've made it so taboo that things like this happen to the extremes, I believe. You know what I mean? And if things weren't so taboo and people were allowed to embrace the dark and the dark feminine and masculine, people would understand it a lot more. But a lot of women are attracted to the darker masculine because they have more confidence. They show a sense of confidence. So how to work with this one? I mean, this is to the extreme. I wouldn't want to work with this one in manifesting. I would be running from this. If I was connected to somebody who was like this, all right, I would be a little bit nervous. But if this is you on a 0 level, let's not say you're anywhere near Charles Manson level. The only way you're going to be able to manifest is by doing the work. This is it's your emotions. Healing wounds, understanding what's going on within, self-work, self-discovery, emotional intelligence, learning, understanding psychology, understanding concepts, understanding yourself, self-awareness. That's the only way to really protect yourself from being under the influence of other people. You have to be, you can't be so susceptible to be influenced by other people. You have to have a mind of your own and know that we all can fall trap of somebody doing this to us. It doesn't matter how smart you are. People can emotionally manipulate you. You fall in love with them. But if you have a great sense of who you are, and you have been working, or you have like I have my therapist, everywhere I go, I have somebody. You always have somebody that you can connect to. So you're always checking in. You're always loving yourself more than anybody else is the only way you're going to protect yourself. I think at the best case scenario from somebody who's going to emotionally play games with you. And at any level, I think it sucks. So it doesn't matter at 0 level or higher level. I don't think it's nice, even if I've shown up for somebody like that in my life, playing victim, emotionally making somebody feel guilty. That's things that we can do, especially when we're manifesting, trying to make our SP feel guilty. Like, why don't you love me? Why don't you call me? Why don't you want me? Why don't you want to be, or do anything to make them feel bad for not giving them what you want? No, it's like, nobody's here to give us anything. We're all here on this journey on our own, and we can't expect others to fill those voids.
Right. So, something else about him that's interesting is one of the things that's looked at in the newer studies about him is the fact that he was a failed musician. He had
Yes,
tried to get his songs purchased, right? He
boys,
met up
right?
with some of the Beach Boys, and I think Dennis Wilson took his songs and didn't give him credit, and they used some of his songs. And he was really looking forward to this whole idea that he would be able to do music as a career. And then when that was taken away, that's right, I think a month before the first murders happen. So
Yep.
obviously that's like really, like you said, that's at the level of 100. So, but in a regular, in your normal life, right, closer to zero, that kind of thing can happen where you feel emotionally run down and like you can't do anymore, or no one hears you, and you try one last time to get your dream, and it can just shatter some people to be rejected like that. And it's just an example of how, you really, like someone like him, obviously he needed help very early on and he didn't receive it. So to me, it's an example also of why it's so important to be conscious of other people around you in the world, and trying to create healthy communities where these sorts of things don't happen. Like we already talked about the importance of mental health.
Yeah.
But it's also not, trying not to put so much of your own value outside of yourself, where the opinions of others
Yes.
allow you to not feel joy about the things you love,
Well,
you know?
that's the attachment. That's the thing with the King and Queen of Cups in reverse. It's like that's why it's one of the hardest things to do when you're manifesting. If you're in that energy, you are needing somebody to save you. You're needing to be seen for worth. You're needing to be known. You're needing to be fulfilled. But once you get that, what you think you need, it's not going to fill you. You're not going to find joy. That's why there's a lot of depression. There's a lot of musicians that's, we've talked about this last time, committing suicide. I mean, it's like when you're going after somebody to fill, or something to fill a void with you emotionally, right? You're constantly in a lack. You're constantly in a poor me victim, self-pity party. You want somebody to fix your problems. You want to, if I just get this, I'll be this. And it's you're just, you're not gonna, it's just, you're looking for something outside of you to value you, which is why it's so important especially for a water cup, if you get pulled that in reverse, we all do. It doesn't matter about tarot.
Mm-hmm.
We all need to be emotionally balanced. Balance in emotional, spirituality, and practicality.
Mm-hmm.
Bottom line, because you need all three. You need all three to manifest. You need all three to live a healthy life. You need all three to choose the right people to have around you, because you will attract what you are,
Mm-hmm.
and what you're looking for, what you're seeking. And if you're grasping at anything, you're going to get anything. And usually if you're a first to fall in love too quickly just because you need a void filled, you find out later the disaster that you attached yourself to. You didn't see anything else. And then sometimes it's too late for people to pull away, because an emotional attachment is really hard to break away from.
So I have a question just generally about the King of Cups as a tarot card, and maybe for all of them. So maybe we want to just go to the last slide. Is that the one that just shows both of them? I'm sorry, I was getting a little tired of seeing Charlie Manson's intense eyes. We can look at his earlier, just regular mugshot here. Uh,
I was like, is that him? I had to look at his eyes. I was like, oh, that is him.
yeah. So my question is this: if you pull the King of Cups in reverse, like if I'm sitting here and I pull that right now, I know I don't have Charlie Manson in my life. I'm pretty
Right.
sure. I don't think I have Richard III in my life. Like I don't have any devious, deceptive person out there. But so I'm just wondering if you could say something about, generally, obviously tarot cards are a place that if you are using them correctly, it's a way that you can check in with
Yeah.
where are you in the whole scheme of things, so that you if you do this regularly and you've got that's part of that, can be part of your practice. So if
Yes.
you pull the King of Cups, that's showing you, okay, you might be getting too intense into into the depth of your emotions, and maybe you're not seeing the big picture, right? Or like, what would you say about the King of Cups or any card when it comes up like that? What is it telling you, and how can you use the cards around it to help you
Yes.
figure out what to do?
The best way for me to start this is how I do readings for me when I want to check where I'm at every day, right? And sometimes I do it every day, sometimes I go months without doing it, sometimes I go every day and do it. I pull 5 cards, and I don't do them in reversals because I don't want to try to decipher exactly, because you can go 0 to 100, and I know I'm doing the work, right? So I have the card of me, and then I'll do the second card, my challenge or obstacle. I give myself one challenge or obstacle. So if the King of Cups were to come in that position, all right, it would tell me that I just have an obstacle today. So we try not to look at everything from such a deep, like, oh my God, it's the King of Cups in reverse. So I try to get people to be a little bit more practical about what's your question around. Are you just looking at today? Are you looking at how's, my energy today? What's my biggest obstacle just today, God? You know what I mean? I don't need to solve the world's problems right now, right? So you get the King of Cups there, and it's in the challenge position, which is pretty much saying reversal position. It might be saying that you're not following your intuition. You're not taking action based on what you really believe or feel, or maybe you need to see if you're really doing something that you feel in alignment with. Are you truly in alignment with what you want? Do you feel like you're receiving support and nurturing in your life right now? Are you supporting and nurturing yourself? All right. So whether it's masculine or feminine energy, if it's a card you pull for yourself, to me, it says the same thing. It might even be saying, maybe not to act with your emotions right now regarding a situation that you're asking about. Maybe think logically. Maybe right now isn't the time to invest emotionally, or maybe you're not emotionally invested in that situation as well. It can mean things like that. So I like to just get people to try and not make everything so cryptic that way. Try to stay like easy for yourself to translate the cards so that it's actually helping you out more. You know what I mean? Otherwise, we'd all be running out. Therapies tomorrow. Everybody would have an appointment. You know what I mean? Like, some things we can actually work through ourselves and just figure it out. Right. So why am I getting the Queen of Cups or King of Cups in reverse? And then usually your own head will tell you the truth. It's like when after a while you start to go, I know I'm not, my heart's not in it, or I'm not trusting my intuition, but because I've been anxious lately and I don't know what I want, or I don't feel compassion, or I don't feel like I'm getting the love I want. And also maybe you're not tapping into your creativity. Maybe you need to find patience with other people or yourself when it comes to falling, with love. Maybe you're not being kind to yourself. Maybe you're being too hard on yourself because things aren't working out the way you want them to. Maybe you're closing off and you're not allowing people in to see you because you're being unkind to yourself. You don't think you deserve it. It could go into worth issues too, and how you maybe don't feel lovable. It can go,
Mhm.
so we can go 0 to 100. It depends on the question you're asking around it. And but if you're asking like about a specific person usually, and it's somebody that you're in a lot of trouble with, I tend to psychoanalyze it and look at it like, all right, you know what I mean, you're dealing with somebody who's emotionally detached, or you're really not emotionally invested, or you're codependent, or you're seeking outside external things to fill your heart.
Hmm.
So it's just, I think the more precise your question is, and the
Mhm.
more you stay kind of like, and that's why when I try to tell people when they're doing personal readings with me, please don't go too general. What does spirit have for me? I'll I'll have to go to the most basic things, because it's just not. I would be here for 45 minutes to an hour. It's like the more you hone in on what it is you're inquiring about, the more specific you are about your question, the more specific you're going to receive your own answers through the
Mhm.
cards. So, did that
And you
help?
believe that people can do this for themselves? right?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. But they've got to understand the cards, and they have to be working on themselves. People tend, what I'm seeing, look at the cards and want to interpret the cards to manipulate what they want in their 3D reality. And that's a little different from using the cards to stay in alignment with what you want, as opposed to, I'm going to believe this card is saying this and I'm going to create. And this is where false beliefs and delusionment comes in. And this is where you'll get people saying, I went to so and so, I pulled my own cards today and this is what I got, but yet I got something totally different for them, and they don't want to hear the truth. And so this is when it's not going to work for you if you're going to lie to yourself, or you're going to manipulate. You're only manipulating yourself, because the cards are you. The cards are you. So when you're playing around with the cards and you're trying to lie, you're just, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. And it's also a journey too, because when I was younger, when I first started with cards, I thought each card meant exactly something, and that's exactly what it meant too. But when you realize from a manifesting perspective what they really are, and how the archetypes and with psychology and everything, and there's just so much depth, and that's what I'm hoping that people get, like I said, when we're with us talking. And I don't know it all, and I'll never pretend to know it all. I'm always growing with this stuff. These cards have so much wisdom in them that somebody who has a Carl Jung could take these cards and go, hey, freaking have a party. Neville Goddard was a tarot reader, which is why when I see manifesting coaches putting down tarot readings, I'm like, okay, you're preaching Neville Goddard, but you don't even know his story. He was a tarot reader. He stopped reading tarot. He did astrology too. He stopped because he didn't need it anymore, and he spoke. But he had somebody that he was teaching underneath him. She didn't want to give it up because she was making money, but she wouldn't trust in the process. So she continued to do tarot with manifesting, kind of like I do. That's how I got the idea. I knew I was on the right path with it. There's so many levels and depths. I will never tell somebody that they're doing anything wrong, because nobody can tell you what you're doing is wrong. You have to figure it out on your own. It's just about understanding.
Yeah. I mean, and for me, thinking about the historical archetypes and connecting them to each type of card is something that works for me and helps me think about what's the kind of medicine in each card, right?
Yes.
Because I can think about how things played out in a particular person's life, but it also does help to me to apply it to sort of fictional characters or current celebrities, those types of things. To me, I always need it to be applied in a way and to be real for me to get the symbolism and significance. So if someone just says to me, there's a salamander sitting on the King of Wands, and that shows his wisdom, and then I don't remember it all, right? Like every little piece. Yeah. I don't connect with it as much as, okay, but this particular individual who was that way was successful because of these things, and I can apply it into my life this way. That helps me. But
that's me too. And I think that's why we're kind of, this is working well, because I watch Dave and I watch them. I don't know. I don't sit there and analyze every single piece of information on there. I go off. I'm a visual person, so I get a feeling right away from a card, and what I need from that card will come up when I'm doing somebody else's reading, and all the other cards will give a message and a pattern. And I'm a pattern person, and I'll see a storyline, but I will feel the overall energy, and I will know what these cards need to tell me. You can get too lost in the details and not trust your own intuition and not feel. That's why sometimes it's just a matter of, that's why sometimes I like going really fast too. It's good to go slow, but it's also good to go fast so that you don't question yourself. It's good to practice like that, I think, so that you can, but again too, it's really good to know all the details too, for other reasons. I may miss messages, but I'm not ready to sit there and look at every teeny little. I work for masses, very efficient. So I have to trust my initial intuition. And I just had my human design thing. I'm a projector, and I just had my report done today. I'm going to have, she's going to come on the channel as well. And we were talking about, I get instant, my spleen, I get instant messages. So if I think too much on it, and if I don't, and if I'll miss them, I'll miss the truth. I'll miss what the message is. So when I'm in the flow or channeling, or when I'm throw a card down, and when I got people who want to ask a second time and things like that, it's like, in my head, I already know. It doesn't matter what I say, because the first message I gave you is what you were meant to hear.
Mm-hmm.
My initial intuition. Unless I go, wait a minute, I'm hearing something else. I think I didn't hear that, and I'm figuring it out. But I've gotten to that. I've connected. I've been doing it 3 years now on YouTube, that I can connect like that, though. And I can connect, and I can catch myself.
So we all have to figure out our own process and how we do it for ourselves, and also trust sometimes, that the way that you're reading. There's not just one way to expect everyone to read, right?
And if you're drawn to me, you're drawn to me for a reason. There's something that you had to hear. And if you didn't like it, it's a trigger. And guess what triggers are? Triggers are unresolved issues and wounds within us. So there's something there. It might not be exactly what you wanted or expected, but you don't know if maybe that was the key, or is the key to what could help you right now and solve what's going on. But it's not what you expected. And when people come to a reading and expect, or they want certain things, or they didn't like me for some, or they have judgments or anything like that, or they have a misunderstanding, or but that's where I'm in this. I know what I'm up against. You just gotta hope for the best, that you're planting seeds. But the only thing is, always trust yourself. Your inner voice is your guidance. So if you get a message, don't doubt it. Sit with your first message. That is your message. And you might not want to hear it, and maybe it's not comfortable, but maybe it's there because you're supposed to feel comfortable with it. That's the only way I get so passionate. My eyes are.
Oh, no. So Frankie, for those of us who are here right now, can you pull a card for us to see what is the wisdom of the kings, what are we supposed to be doing with this information? Or would you feel called to be able to do that for us?
Well, the kings, you want me to pull just a king, or
just any card, to see if there was anything we missed, or another message we need to know from thinking about king energy, or how to apply it.
We have the king's energy in my I'll pull a card. I'll pull a card for you all, and then I'll pull, like I would do, an obstacle card, and see. That'll be your obstacle or block. My eyes are so bleeding right now. I can't even see you right now.
Oh, no.
Okay, you got the King of Wands here at the bottom of the deck that's showing up right now. So this is basically, we're going back to inspired action, affirmations, and confidence. That's what spirit. And you know something? Everybody that's here in the room right now has been with me for so long that I feel like you already all know about the limited beliefs, the mindset, and the self-talk, that really I think it's time now for everybody. And we're going into, I think Mars is in Leo now. And I think, I don't quote me on that. I'm just going what I hear. But we're in an energy where it is time to get confident and to start to everything we said about the King of Wands. Fake it till you make it. You've got to create who you want to be. You've got to play the part. What was that the actors do, that Matthew McConaughey did when he
method acting?
Method acting.
Yeah.
Method acting. So look, you're being asked to take inspired action. You're being asked to step up, create, and affirmations. So self-concept. Maybe it's time to focus on your new self-concept. I'm hearing that message now for myself too. I'm moving now again. And what do I want to see? I always do this before I move. What changes do I need to make? So what do you want in your life right now? What are you guys manifesting into your life? So your self-concept is your umbrella affirmations. You know, I attract love so easily. Everywhere I go, I just get attention from people. These are umbrella affirmations, right? I'm beautiful. Everybody tells me I'm beautiful. You know, I know they're not always the I am that we're looking for, but it's the way you would talk to yourself. It's the beliefs. You're creating new beliefs and a new self-concept. And you're doing this through affirmations. This is also asking you to maybe look at your vision. Do you even know what you want? Are you looking? Do you see it? Can you see your vision? Can you see? I can see my visions. I can see what I want so much that I dream about them. That's how much I think about it. That's how much and I went through the ringer with this process. Believe me, I got sick over it too. And, I didn't get sick over it, but I mean, I think it was all part of it. But you've got to have a vision and take inspired action. You don't force anything. When you're in the flow and you're going after and you're confident and you know your worth and you're confident, you're in the flow, you will take inspired action and it'll happen. Once you start seeing it, it'll keep coming. It'll keep coming. All right. And then you got the King of Swords showing up for you. Isn't that wild? You just saw me do all that shuffling.
Wow.
So I'm seeing right now that I'm thinking that, and you got the Ace of Swords. So it's time to cut through the bullshit. It's time to get focused with the King of Swords. It's time to set intentions, set new intentions. It's a new beginning. We're going into Gemini season. And I do have the Peace Dealer coming on June 8th, Thursday. I am so in love with him. I watch his shorts. He's so funny. I'm like, he's a Gemini and he's going to come in and he's going to tell us how to work manifestation with the magic of Gemini season. And this is where you got the King of Swords energy and you got the Marsy energy, the fire energy, right? So this is about having clear intentions now. It's time to clear through the bullshit. Stop lying to yourself. It's about stepping up, changing your perspective, clear, focused, strategy, everything we said about the King of Swords. So you guys got the King of Swords and the King of Wands and the Ace of Swords. It's time for a new beginning, and it's time, cut out. You got to cut out the noise. You got to cut out the bullshit. You just, it's not working anymore. That's all I got.
Wow.
Well,
it's like you pulled Excalibur out of the stone.
Yes, Excalibur. When I was in high school,
such a great pull of cards.
I was obsessed with King Arthur and Excalibur. That's funny. That is.
I mean, that's it. We have to get out there like King Arthur, know our truth,
and
know
if
that
it's
we're worthy.
That's funny with Excalibur, because King Arthur was able to pull it out of the stone because he was meant for it. If you're following your true desires and you are being honest with yourself and you are confident and you know your worth and you know that you're meant to have these desires, you're able to pull that sword. I don't know. I thought it would be cute and kind of be creative there.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for doing that. That's a great ending.
That was kind of fun synchronicities. I was thinking I was going to pull random cards, but it's weird that both kings came out. And so the King of Swords and the King of Wands.
So all right. Stay clear of these king of the Charlie Mansons.
Yeah. So we were just, I don't want everybody to think that the water energies and like the dictator of the King of Swords, it's just showing in the extreme.
Mm-hmm.
And people can see how it can manipulate a lot of people. And if you can look at how it can be on a grand scale, you can start to see it if you're in an abusive situation like that, and do you want to be in a situation like that? We don't have enough time on this planet. We have so much time to have this human experience. We don't need, that's like cut through that bullshit. We don't need to deal with that anymore.
Exactly.
So yeah, Peace Dealer. I'm so excited. I'll have a post up soon. All right. Well, we've been on 2 hours and 45 minutes and my eyes are bleeding and I got super passionate.
Wow. Well, then that's a successful show.
I know. I loved it. I love doing the Kings tonight. So we're doing the Knights next Tuesday. And I'm excited about that. So hopefully you guys will be with us with the Knights next Tuesday. And I will have timestamps up and my eyes need a rest. And I'll have timestamps up as soon as this is processed. It usually takes a few hours. It'll process and then
All right. Well, thank you, Frankie. This was great.
All right, hold on one second, then I'm going to end the broadcast. Bye, guys.
Bye.